Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto ended up calling upon the chakra of the Kyuubi in his anger during the Battle of the Bridge in Wave Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Unnamed bridge, country of wave. In the middle of an unnamed, unfinished bridge, clouded by mist, in the middle of an island country, trying to connect itself to the mainland in an effort to escape the clutches of a tyrant, a battle had unfolded. Two battles. Battles between two different groups of ninjas that ultimately would decide the fate of the island nation. In one battle it was two Jonin-level shinobi pitted against each other. The famous Kakashi of the Sharingan with his gravity-defying silver hair and mismatched eyes, against the infamous Zabuza Momochi, a man with short brown hair and, if you would believe it, no eyebrows and also a very, very large sword. The two were quite even in their fight, even with the disadvantages Kakashi had. Though in the mind of the silver-haired ninja, things were going according to plan in the fight with him. On the other hand though, Kakashi was much more worried about the other fight going on. The second of the two fights taking place was occurring in a dome of ice mirrors, where two of Kakashi's students, Naruto Uzumaki, a spiky blonde-haired, hyperactive ninja, and Sasuke Uchiha, the duck-haired emo edgelord himself, or as what Naruto thought of him as, were up against the ice-wielding Haku, Zabuza's one and only partner at this point in time. The masked ninja had been using his unique jutsu to move between the mirrors at high speed to shred the two with his senbon, and in comparison to the first fight, this second one was going badly for the side of the Konoha ninjas. Both of them had been riddled with senbons by the masked ninja, but were still standing against Haku. Well, one at this point since Naruto was essentially immobilized by the senbons, but there seemed to be at least one silver lining for the two of them. Sasuke had finally achieved something he had long worked on gaining: the Sharingan. The copy wheel eye. With it, Sasuke could finally pick up on Haku's movements. With it, Sasuke felt they could probably win this. However, that's where things took a turn. Haku made his move out of the mirror, causing Sasuke to prepare to jump in. But he then noticed just where Haku was going, right towards Naruto. Crap! Make it in time, the raven-haired ninja said as he dashed over to protect Naruto. It was moments after when Naruto started to undo some of the senbon's effects when he looked up to see Sasuke had been riddled even further now by Haku's senbon. Even worse, it seemed like he was on his last legs, even bleeding in a few places. Sasuke? Why did you protect me? Naruto said with a bit of fear. Sasuke then fell down, during which Naruto happened to catch the Uchiha mid-fall. The Uchiha looked at him, and said, "I don't know, my body moved on its own, idiot. I wanted to defeat my brother, revive my clan, but I guess a part of me didn't want you to die." Sasuke then passed out in Naruto's arms, though at the time, it seemed much like the Uchiha heir was dead. Haku overlooked the scene from one of the mirrors as he spoke to protect someone dear to him. He was willing to jump into a trap as a shinobi. He has my respect. I am sorry, but it's time to end this fight. Naruto laid the Uchiha's head down on the ground, and then spoke. But it was the tone of this voice that even Haku couldn't help but flinch at. Shut up. An orange energy then began to spill out of Naruto's body, circling around him. Haku couldn't help but wonder just what kind of monster he just poked. On the outside, the battle halted for a moment, and while Kakashi could tell the seal was leaking, something felt odd. However, he put that to the back of his mind as the battle resumed. It was at this point two things happened. 1. A spark of red electricity jumped off the boy, and 2. Unknown location. Somewhere far away, the Shinigami, bringer or death, misfortune, and the summon used for the greatest sealing jutsu of all, was in the middle of drinking his tea before he suddenly felt agonizing pain coming from his stomach. It lasted a few moments, but then after calming himself, he noticed something. Why am I missing that man's soul? Whatever, back at the bridge. I'll kill you, Naruto said, his eyes temporarily turning red with a slit pupil. He could feel other changes as well, such as not only an improved sense of smell, but hearing and so forth. But at this point, to him it didn't matter. Someone just killed his best friend, and they were going to pay. Haku in his fear then sent out a wave of senbon at Naruto, who with a simple roar blew the senbon away from him. The roar didn't just do that though, but it also in its force managed to shatter all of the remaining mirrors, leaving Haku out in the open. He then rushed at Haku and then punched them in the face, the punch sending the shinobi flying. It not only broke his mask, but also very much disheveled their clothing. Naruto then rushed forwards, ready to deal one last blow before he noticed that it was none other than the girly boy, or as he could now tell definitely a girl, was the one in front of him. He stopped his punch just short of Haku's face before he spoke. Why did it have to be you, Haku? Why are you doing this? Haku looked at him with dead eyes before asking him, and why did you stop? I killed one of your precious people, so why? Naruto gave a single punch, knocking Haku to the ground, before he said he was my friend, and you are too, so why? Haku got herself off the ground before she said in order to fulfill Zabuza's command it had to be done even if I didn't like doing it. Naruto then yelled, so why? Why do you serve a guy like that then? Haku looked at him before she spoke. I owe him my life. He gave me purpose when all was lost. He protected me from the purges that came from this cursed bloodline of mine, the ability to use ice, and also from those who would want to abuse it. Thus I have chosen to follow his dream. Naruto then retorted, then what about this country? What about these people? Haku looked down and replied, it doesn't matter anymore. If I can't be useful to him, I might as well be dead. Slay me and go forward for your dream as well as your friends. Naruto was thinking about listening to her and ending her life, but then he started to pick up the sounds of another fight which he believed to be his sensei's, the sound of several large dogs biting someone and the sound of birds chirping. Haku, while not having Naruto's senses, also noticed this. She then said, never mind, it seems I have one more use. Haku then shined away towards where the fight was happening. Just as Naruto was confused, he heard a voice of a man say to him, you want that girl to live, then move. And make sure you grab the wrist. Naruto, in slight panic from the voice, did as it said, and he also noticed that while he no longer felt that bloodlust from before, he could feel that he was faster than before. But he didn't have time to think on it. He then came to a scene where Kakashi was dashing towards Zabuza with his hand covered in lightning, aimed to lunge straight through the missing nin. But more importantly, Haku was rushing to intercept the attack. He then dashed forwards, even faster than before. And in particular, he remembered what the voice said. Just as it seemed like Kakashi was about to turn Haku into a living shield, Naruto got there in time from the side, catching Kakashi's lightning blade by grabbing his wrist at the last moment with all of his strength. The attack ended up being centimeters from the ice Kunoichi's chest, much to her surprise and deeper in her mind, relief. Now at this point, Zabuza would have probably attempted to make an attack on Kakashi, however two things had caught him completely off guard. First was the fact that Haku nearly just sacrificed herself to protect him. He hadn't wanted her to do that, in all honesty. While not telling Haku, he wanted her to grow up as a strong kunoichi that could fend for herself. But his teaching methods did not go quite to plan. He was fine with it. After this, though, he thought he probably should take care of that issue. The second was Naruto. Due to a variety of things. Especially considering he managed to catch an attack that was rumored to cut lightning with his bare hand, no less. Even he had to admit that was impressive, but there was also the changes he was noticing. Meanwhile, in Naruto's head, wow, that was fucking awesome. They're awed by the sheer awesomeness I displayed, I bet. Though why is it that for some reason I can hear, smell, and see better than usual? And I think I feel something on my but maybe it's a Saban or something weird. Oh well, I'll figure it out. Also, what was that voice? I don't think it was the Kyuubi, but what if was? Meanwhile, Kakashi was still in surprise in the fact that Naruto caught his lightning blade of all things, and supposedly, there was very few who could accomplish that, such as AI at one point, and Kakashi's deceased sensei, Minato Namikaze, who happened to be Naruto's father. Only reasons he couldn't say anything were the laws and the threat that could come from Earth Country. However, either of them had the time to really think or notice the real issue at hand. That was because of what happened next. Well, seems you couldn't even handle a bunch of brats, Zabuza? This caused the three to turn towards the end of the bridge, revealing Gato, a short old man who was as greedy as they come, and a large amount of goons or mercenaries. What are you doing here, Gato? Zabuza yelled out in annoyance. This was clearly not part of what they agreed on. Gato let out a laugh before he said, are you an idiot? Let me make this simple for you then. I had you go and do your little fight so that afterwards, I could finish you or them off and then send your head to Mizu for a nice little reward. I bet I would get in that crazy bastard Yagura's good graces with that too. I'm a bit surprised though only one of you is well dead, but it doesn't matter. All that does is you die here, I keep your pay, and I get the nice bonus from the bounty office. At this point Zabuza sighed as he said, in hindsight, I really should have seen this coming. Haku then noted, I did say that we would have been better off killing him. While I know we're trying to keep out of Mizu's radar and I normally despise killing, that scum is definitely an exception. Zabuza hummed before he turned his head to Kakashi and said, well, since our job is basically voided now, I guess it would be best to work together. Kakashi just shrugged and did a nod while Naruto looked at Gato with contempt. From what Inari and the old man told him, he definitely would make sure he got what would be coming, though he also noticed another thing or two, such as what he heard from the other side. The fuck is that? And monster? Are we sure this is a good idea? Naruto shrugged these off, thinking it was either just like the dumb and clueless villagers not understanding, or they were saying that about the guy who used a very large sword that also happened to have no eyebrows. However, the next words that came out of Gato's mouth would be ones he would regret in hell. Oh, do me a favor and kill only the men. I bet we could put those women to use. Sakura paled at the thought. Tazuna couldn't help but glare at the man to no effect. Haku was very angry but couldn't really do anything since she was out of chakra. Kakashi was a bit annoyed at the thought, thinking that Gato was definitely a piece of trash. Zabuza and Naruto, however, they started giving off killing intent. Naruto looked over to Zabuza and said, first to that bastard gets to kill him? Zabuza looked at him as well and said, deal. Naruto used his shadow clone jutsu to spawn at least 15 clones of himself, all of which pulled out 2 kunai. Zabuza pulled Kubikuribocho off his back, ready to dash into the fray. Meanwhile, Kakashi decided to head in along with them so that Naruto wouldn't get himself killed. Of course, Sakura couldn't really help, but then she noticed Sasuke's body on the floor and quickly dashed over there. As she sat down and laid his head on her lap, she checked his pulse and noticed 2 things. Oh, thank Kami, he's alive. And has really nice hands, huh? Neat, she thought. Meanwhile, Haku came over as well, noticing that despite what she did, Sasuke was still alive. She simply shrugged it off for the time being before approaching so she could get the needles out safely. Maybe it would keep them in the good graces of the Leaf Shinobi. Meanwhile, Tazuna simply supervised them, taking a glance as he watched the trio of Naruto, Kakashi, and Zabuza make their charge at the mercenaries. Oh, who am I kidding? They're goons. They're weak enough to be called goons in this story, but to be put bluntly, and without going into extremely gory detail, the three overwhelmed them all with ease. With Zabuza brutally slashing them down, Kakashi killing him with his finesse style, and lastly, Naruto beating the snot out of them. By the time all that was left was Gato, the man was on the ground begging for his life. Though at this point, all three of them were ready to take the bastard down, and let's just leave what happened as something that should not be noted. You know, that felt great to get out, Zabuza said as they walked away from Gato's remains. Kakashi said meh, he had it coming to him with that. Naruto looked back at what was left of Gato before he said well, I think we went a little overboard, but as they say, no kill like overkill? Kakashi shrugged while Zabuza laughed. As they approached the others, they noticed that Sasuke was stirring, meaning that he was alive. Holy crap, you're still alive, Sasuke! Naruto yelled in happiness. Shut up, dope, Sasuke said with a bit of annoyance. And with that, things seemed to calm down before escalating by 100%. Sakura then said, by the way, Naruto, what's with the ears and tail? Naruto and Kakashi stopped dead in their tracks before taking notice of the blonde boy's changes. Zabuza also did, but not in the terror both Kakashi and Naruto felt. Naruto's human ears were now gone, replaced by a pair of orange and black fox ears, similar to the Kyuubi's, stood on top of his head. He also had a tail that was orange and black. It was at this point both Kakashi and Naruto realized what had happened. As a result, teacher and student ended up speaking in unison. Oh fuck. Tazuna's house, Land of Wave, shortly after. The Konoha ninja, along with the two missing needs, stood silently within the room. It was quite silent. What brought up the silence was the fact the blonde hair, orange clothing wearing boy, now had a pair of fox ears and a tail. Naruto and Kakashi obviously knew this was likely to the Kyuubi's chakra affecting his body. Sakura and Haku had no idea whatsoever. Sasuke had his guesses, and Zabuza, while he could tell it somehow happened due to him being a Jinchuriki, didn't really care too much. The only good thing to come out of this so far was right before the villagers showed up, Naruto quickly used the transformation to hide his new features. Of course, in the end, it only helped him temporarily since while he had a lot of chakra, it wasn't like he could keep it up forever. So after heading inside and upstairs, with Sasuke and Haku both laid down on beds since they were the only ones to take decent damage without any sort of recovery fact, the group was in silence over this issue. And before anyone says anything, Kakashi and Zabuza simply had a few bandages on at this point. Both could easily just drop into unconsciousness if they wished. They just simply thought they needed to look like the professional, Jonin rank shinobi they were in front of their pupils. Finally, the one who broke the silence in the room was none other than the pinkette, Sakura. So what's with those ears and tail again? Naruto sighed and looked at Kakashi, who simply just shrugged. At this point the secret was basically out. Heck, while the others were distracted by the villagers, Kakashi took a quick check of the seal and saw no severe errors based on his knowledge. So it wasn't like Naruto somehow became the Kyuubi or there was a risk of it breaking out. As a result, what he more so cared about was how everyone was going to take it. Naruto then nodded. Okay, first off, this is, according to Old Man Third, a S-class secret. Sasuke, Sakura, and Haku then tensed, knowing the importance of this. Zabuza already knew what he was about to say, so didn't really give much of a problem. Naruto then continued, long story short, the Yondaime Hokage couldn't kill the Kyuubi, because killing chakra beasts for good is impossible, so instead it got sealed into me, and the villagers after hearing about this all assumed I must be the Kyuubi reborn or something, and as a result, all hate me, with a few trying to kill me a few times. Databao. The three looked at him with wide eyes before Kakashi added, and just so you know, he isn't the Kyuubi itself despite his current look, he is still the goofball ninja we all know and love. Sasuke nodded as he said yeah. He wouldn't still act like a dope otherwise. Naruto retorted hey. Sakura then nodded yeah, he may have a beast sealed inside him, and now has some of its features, but it's still Naruto. Haku then added yes, he is still the boy I met that day in the woods, that is for certain. For a second Kakashi swore he could see Zabuza's eye twitch, but he ignored it for now. Naruto then replied, thanks guys. It's good to know at least some people understand sealing around here even if I don't understand much. True enough. Naruto looked around shocked for a second, recognizing the voice from the fight previously. The others looked at him with question marks above their heads while the voice simply chuckled a little. While I would try to explain it from here, I think I have an easier method. Have your friends as Zabuza touch some part of your body. At that point I'll take over from there. The voice said. You? Naruto replied, a little confused with the request until a second male voice spoke, this one much harsher and in Naruto's thoughts, just had to be the Kyuubi. Just do it already, flesh bag. I'd rather get this conversation over with so I can go back to sweet, blissful sleep with the side of destructive dreams. Naruto then looked at his friends plus Zabuza and said, okay guys, do me a favor and touch some part of my body. Sasuke looked at him before he said wwwhhy. Naruto then said just do it. I think it seal things. Kakashi shrugged, guessing that since he'll probably already get in trouble for Naruto's mutation? Transformation? Whatever people wanted to call it, he might as well go for the ride. He then walked over and put a hand on Naruto's left shoulder. The others seeing this followed suit. Zabuza had his right shoulder, Haku his right arm, Sasuke his leg with his foot since he couldn't exactly get up at the moment, and Sakura his left arm. At this point the first voice said alright then, just a bit right here and then for the group everything went black. Naruto's mindscape, sewer version. Right after it went dark, the group opened their eyes to what looked like a dark and flooded sewer system. Where the heck are we? And I swear if my clothes get ruined I'm blaming you Naruto baka. Sakura screeched at him. I'm sorry, Naruto said in response. Meanwhile the rest of the group was looking at something else. A bit to the left of them sat a large cage, the size of the Hokage monument. Sasuke and Kakashi thought. Kakashi instantly knew what they were looking at before a large pair of large crimson iris, slit pupil eyes opened and looked at them. Said creature then opened its mouth, showing its bright, shiny, white fangs. Hello flesh bags. Fear me for I am the Almighty was what came out before a second voice spoke as it came down one of the halls. Kyuubi, yes we know. Now how about we greet them nicely instead of threatening them? We'll make things a lot easier. The Kyuubi grumbled a bit before letting the second voice take over. While everyone was a bit puzzled, Kakashi wasn't. And his one visible eye was as wide as he thought it could get. Please tell me this isn't one of my alcohol-induced nightmares, he muttered out. The voice just laughed as he got closer. No Kakashi, it's not. The figure the voice came from walked into the light, revealing an adult in what could be guessed as mid-20s, with shaggy blonde hair and bright blue eyes. He wore the Jonin uniform under a white haori that had flames printed on the trim and on the back of it, the words for fourth in kanji. And while many could simply think it was an imitation, Kakashi could feel his sensei's unique chakra. It was definitely not a copy, but the man himself. He's real came out of his mouth. At this point, everyone other than Naruto said no way Lord Fourth, the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, simply chuckled as he said the one and only. Nice to meet you all. At this point everyone was speechless. However it was Naruto's turn to say something. Oh my Kami, that explains way too much. Sakura then replied, explains what? Naruto then walked over to the Namikaze before he said look. Everyone other than Kakashi took a second before their eyes bulged as they yelled EHHHHH. Kakashi simply laughed as he said so that's why Lord Third asked me to never let you see a picture of him. Naruto then shrugged, hey, I may be an idiot, but even I'm not that stupid. Zabuza ended up laughing his ass off at the thought that of all the people that according to the blonde, hated him, the blonde also happened to be the son of their savior of all people. He could imagine the ironic reaction the civilians of Konoha would have if they learned the truth. After recovering from his reaction, Sasuke then said so basically, the fourth sealed the Kyuubi into his own son to save the village, doing something that he would sacrifice himself rather than force some other parent, right? Minato nodded at the boy's observation as he said correct. If I was going to ask someone else, what kind of shinobi would I be if I wasn't willing to risk my own? Plus with Naruto having Uzumaki blood, it makes the sealing a lot smoother, plus someone else was after the Biju so it was necessary to seal it. Sakura then added on wait. If Earth Nation knew about this, couldn't they go after Naruto? Kakashi nodded and said, and that my student is why we told nearly no one who his parents were. Naruto looked at the man before he took a moment and gave Minato a quick punch to the gut. Naruto said, sorry dad, you left your son the most hated child in Konoha. Had to get one in. Minato got up as he caught his breath before he said, okay, yeah, I deserved at least one. Kakashi then got to the important matter here. So why did you ask us to come here then, sensei? Kakashi asked him. Minato then scratched his neck while the Kyuubi, who found what was about to come next, had a grin on its face. Minato then began, well you see. But before he could continue, Kyuubi interrupted, he kinda botched the sealing, that's simple. This was a bit alarming to the group before Minato said it was a slight miscalculation or two. I was working under pressure with you trying to kill me and Kushina. Kyuubi laughed as it said, and I rest my case. Kyuubi 2 Minato 1. Minato looked at the Kyuubi before he said, okay bullcrap. We both know it's 2-2 since I basically gave your Baijidama the middle finger. As the two had their banter, Naruto then interrupted them with, so what does that mean for me? Minato sighed as he explained, well on one end, it seems on a genetic level you've gained some of the Kyuubi's traits, including the ears, tail, heightened senses, and possibly its fox fire amongst other things. But don't worry, I fixed the seals so that it won't affect your body any further. The Kyuubi smirked as he said, if there's one thing I love, it's burning things. The only thing that can equal that would be that blasted Amaterasu. Be happy I'm sealed in here and not killing you, Uchiha. Sasuke gulped a bit before Naruto, in his well-known lack of knowledge, asked the fuck is Amaterasu? At this point, the Kyuubi was laughing his ass off, Minato face-bound, and Sasuke sighed as he muttered, right idiot. Kakashi sighed as he said, Amaterasu is a top-tier form of fire jutsu, capable of burning anything and can only be put out by the will of the user, or when its target is destroyed. It's something that only some Uchiha can learn. Sasuke added, like my brother bastard. Naruto looked at them before he said, okay then anything else? Minato smiled before he said, well apparently, it also strengthened your chakra in such a matter it strengthened the residual chakra I left here, and as a result. Kakashi realized what that meant as he said, Naruto, out of all the things you could do I never thought you could, by pure accident, pull Minato's soul out of the dead demon-consuming seal. Exactly? Originally my chakra was meant to give you a temporary meeting here. As a result of what happened, however, it seems that I'm now here for good. So basically, Fox features, but now we get to have a bit of father-son time. Isn't that nice? Minato said. Naruto had a few tears of joy come out and said, yeah, it really does. At this point all of the group smealed for the boy before the Kyuubi went and ruined the moment. Okay, happy moment and all, but could you flesh bags leave now? I'm in the mood for a nap. Also, can you change what this place looks like, damn it? I'm tired of living in a sewer. At this point, Haku couldn't help but ask, so what is this place anyways? Minato responded, Naruto's mindscape essentially. At this point, Sakura and Sasuke couldn't help but laugh a little, as some of the many kids implied at the idea his mind was a sewer or something. Naruto was also pretty sure they would never let him live that one down. At that point Naruto focused, and changed the place into a forest of sorts, with all sorts of nice nature and whatnot. Minato looked around as he said, wow, nice touch. Kyuubi, inside what looked like a majestic wooden cage, added, I'll take it. Way more comfy. The others looked at him with a bit of surprise as he responded to them with, what? I like nature. They shrugged before Kyuubi decided time was up, and with a snap of its fingers, the world went black again for them as they were sent back outside. Meanwhile, Minato leaned on the cage as he asked, so you noticed too? Kyuubi answered yes, and that ought to be hilarious. Shouldn't take him too long with the enhanced senses. Minato then said, true. Also, when are you going to stop making people think you're male? The Kyuubi got itself up and looked at him before it said, you say anything and I will kill you. Minato then said, not from in that seal you will. Plus I'm just a soul and I got your other half with me. You know, the more willing to cooperate one? Kyuubi sighed as it said, fine, 2 to 3. The unnamed, now completed bridge, Land of Wave. The group, along with Inari, Tazuna, and his daughter Tsunami, plus the Mist Duo, were standing on the wave side of the bridge. Reason being was now all the members had recovered enough so that now they could leave the country, and in the case of the Konoha ninja, go home. However, Kakashi couldn't help but ask Zabuza, so what are you going to do next? Zabuza paused for a moment, and said, well, maybe we could ally with Leaf and get them to help us with another attempt on the Mizukage? Kakashi deadpanned at him for a moment before he asked WHHHYYY. Zabuza looked at him straight in the eye before he replied, okay, let me ask you. Would you want to work for a murderous psychopath who kills innocent people just because they either happen to have a unique ability or two, decide to speak against him, or just simply not like him? Kakashi was still for a moment before he said, fair point, who knows, maybe after your failed assassination attempt they raised a rebellion or something? Zabuza then added, if they did, I'd be impressed. There hasn't been any successful ones yet. Elsewhere, speaking of, at that moment in time, the Busta Materumi had raised her rebellion against Yugura, and so far was doing better than any of the previous tries so far. Guess can't send a man to do a woman's job in that case then? Back at the bridge. In any case though, the group said their goodbyes to each other, and while they tried not to, both Naruto and Inari were crying like children at the end. Sasuke said in response, Dobe, you really can't hold it in until after we're away from them? Naruto, wiping away his tears, retorted, hey, it's called I have feelings, and I spent a lot more time with them than you did. Sasuke looked away, a hint of a smile on his face as he said, true enough, and it could be worse. You could cry at every goodbye or sob story, or mope at every unfortunate event. Naruto couldn't help but say to that fair point. Somewhere in the afterlife one such person couldn't help but sit in a corner moping at how the current generation were treating him. Before long the group then started making their way back towards Konoha, chatting with each other along the way. Haku and Naruto ended up getting along due to similar personalities to each other. Sasuke basically tolerated everyone from what Naruto saw, and meanwhile Kakashi and Zabuza ended up sharing some of their feats, the majority of Zabuza's being, as Naruto put it, overkill. Haku nudged him as she said, well, you were the one to say no kill like overkill, right? Naruto simply shrugged as he said, fair enough. Naruto then asked her, by the way, why did you say you were male before? Haku paused for a moment before she said, well, first off there was what Gato said, then there's how villages like Kuma with how they treat their bloodlines, trust me you don't want to know. Naruto nodded. He at least remembered a few things from his classes. One of which was that Kuma was well known for being power-hungry, and very treacherous when it came to bloodline ninjas. Haku then added, lastly, I tend to enjoy a prank or two. I will admit the look on your face was quite enjoyable. I've even tricked Zabuza once or twice with a good one. Zabuza overheard this before he said, Haku, don't remind me. Naruto at this point asked, want to hear about my pranks? Haku then smiled, but not a nice smile, more like a smirk instead. I'm listening. Meanwhile one thought was going through Zabuza and Kakashi's heads. Oh no, not another one. Meanwhile Minato couldn't help but enjoy the conversations and also thinking back to the few times Kushina pulled him into her prank sprees. He was definitely sure Naruto got her love of pranks from her, especially considering a few of his ended up being similar, except the fact Naruto enjoyed the use of orange paint rather than red. Though he did have to give Naruto props for the Hokage Mountain one. He set that one up perfectly, aside from the getting caught part. After a bit more of conversing, Haku ended up walking alongside Zabuza so she could talk with him for a bit. Zabuza said, so, seems you're making new friends, especially that Uzumaki boy. Haku nodded as she said, indeed, they're pleasant people, especially Naruto. Zabuza then hummed a moment before he said, so got something on you mind? Haku let a grin come to her mouth. She then checked to make sure the blonde boy wasn't paying attention to them. He apparently was having his own little conversation with Sakura, who was a bit curious about how his body was affected. Upon confirmation, Haku whispered to Zabuza, "Remember how I put Sasuke to near death?" Zabuza looked a bit confused before asking her yes. Why? Haku whispered, "I was actually trying to kill him, but apparently, I misjudged where a thing or two was. And I made sure to specifically target his vitals." Zabuza paused for a moment before he ended up nearly laughing his butt off at the information Haku gave him. If that's the case, now I have another reason to follow these brats for my amusement, he thought as the info sat into his mind. This was just as good as the info that Naruto was the son of the fourth Hokage if what he heard about Uchiha boys and their tendency to draw in fangirls was true. The only other one who picked up on their little conversation was Kakashi, who simply thought, well, seems they'll probably enjoy themselves and leave. It was at this point Naruto went over to Kakashi as he said, "You know, it's a lot more different spending time in nature now that my senses are better." Kakashi decided to oblige the boy with conversation as he said, "Is that so?" Naruto replied, "All the smells, sounds, and all that gets so much more pronounced. Weird thing is though that for some reason Sasuke smells more like Sakura does in comparison. Maybe just they use similar soap or something?" Kakashi just simply noted, "I see." In the back of his mind though he started to wonder if he would win his bet with the Sandaime on how long it would take people, particularly the loudmouth Naruto, would realize Sasuke's little secret. But that could be put aside for now. After all, he said in the middle of the Chunin exams it would happen. And he was really hoping that would be the case. After all, both of them had something on the line. A bit later on, like a little less than a week or so, Hokage's office, Konohagakure, Land of Fire. The third stared at the group that was the current generation's Team 7, plus the extra 2 ninja that were missing, Nin, Zabuza, Momochi, and Haku, technically a Nin with no affiliation other than Zabuza. Only 2 of his trusted Umbu were in the room, going between keeping an eye on these 2 in particular, and the fact that after securing the room Naruto dispelled his transformation jutsu so that they could see the changes in Naruto's body while Kakashi explained. It was a bit of a shock for them. Other than the Umbu though, there was none other than the big, white-haired man, none other than the Toad Sage Jiraiya, self-proclaimed mega pervert, author of the Ika Ika series, and one of Konoha's strongest shinobi besides himself. He didn't count the other 2 Sanins since one had turned into a mad scientist traitor, and the other simply drank and gambled away any money sent to her while refusing to come back to the village. He could live with Jiraiya since unlike those 2, he stayed loyal. The Sandaime then spoke, "So let me get this straight, you want me to believe that Minato screwed up in his seal that resulted in Naruto gaining this form, while also causing Minato's soul to somehow be pulled out of the dead demon-consuming seal and into his, and that these 2 here became your allies and now want to work with us in order to eventually get rid of Yagura as the Mizukage?" Kakashi responded, "Yes sir." The Sandaime then said, "Jiraiya, I suggest you check the seal to be sure." The man then nodded, but before he got the chance, Minato spoke to Naruto. "Hey Naruto, I want to try something here. That okay with you?" Sure?" Naruto thought in mind speak. It was something his father had been working on with him. Naruto afterwards then said, "Wait a second, I want to try something here." Jiraiya looked over at the third, who simply nodded. He wanted to at least give the boy some leeway, considering to him, Naruto was like a grandson aside from Konohamaru. Naruto then, according to his father's instructions, made a shadow clone. But then the shadow clone's eyes flashed for a second, and he then proceeded to use the transformation jutsu, appearing as the 4th Hokage. The transformed clone then said, and it worked. "Hello Sensei and Lord Third." At first Hiruzen wasn't sure, but according to Naruto's story he decided to jump on it. "Is that you, Minato Namikaze?" The transformed shadow clone nodded yes. "I figured that I could use Naruto's clone as an avatar of sorts to speak through. I just had him make the clone and let me take control from within his mindscape. And before you ask, no, I cannot use some of my jutsus. Naruto's chakra is a lot harder to control than mine was." Naruto looked at his father, or avatar his father was using, before he said, "Wait, why didn't we do this before?" Minato then said to him, "Well, the Kyuubi wanted to meet with you as well, and unlike me, it can't do this since it's still locked behind the deeper part of the seal. So unlike me, it can't do this." "Oh well, fuck you too." The Kyuubi roared in Naruto and Minato's minds, much to Minato's amusement. Jiraiya paused for a moment before he walked over to him, and then asked him, "Okay, what was one of the things I asked you for when I was writing my books? You said join the pervy side, we have many, many beautiful women to peep on." Minato replied. Jiraiya nodded as he said, "Yeah, he's real. Minato was the only person there when I said that." Minato chuckled as he said, "And you never will, sensei." Naruto and Zabuza was trying hard not to laugh. Kakashi was nodding at the thought since he too had joined the pervy side, though not as much as Jiraiya was. Meanwhile the rest had a hard time believing what they were hearing, considering the supposed teacher of the 4th Hokage actually said that. The 3rd Hokage smiled a little before all the ramifications of the situation hit his mind again. Naruto was now somehow part Kyuubi, Minato's soul ended up now also stuck in the seal, and he also had a missing Nin from Kiri and his pupil wanting to work with /join Leaf so that they could eventually help with the whole situation over there. The 3rd took a huff of his pipe before he spoke. His tone not the grandfatherly figure the younger generation was used to, but as the head of Konoha. "Well then I guess I'll have to accept this. First off, Naruto's current condition is a SS class secret, and can only be revealed by me or the boy himself. Second, Minato, since you're now stuck with him, I want you to teach the boy, and the other members of Team 7 if you have the time, as much as you can. Also Umbu, I would like you to have the Namake's estate made into Naruto's. We'll say that we decided to move him there in an attempt to improve his living conditions and use a building that hasn't been used in a while and won't be getting used otherwise. Until then, Team 7 is to remain on standby. Everyone nodded in response to the first part, Minato alone to the second part, and one of his Umbus, a woman with purple hair, to the third part. The last part all of Team 7 responded with a yes sir. The third Hokage continued lastly, as for you two, I have no problems in enlisting Haku after having her take an exam of sorts to prove herself. If successful, I will have her join as a fourth member to Team 7 since she is in the know. As for you Zabuza, I would like to let our interrogation corps question you a bit. Though since you seem to be in Minato's favor, I will at least let them do so kindly. Understood? Haku and Zabuza replied with a yes sir. Though Zabuza was a bit surprised it came out of his mouth. But then again, he was being asked, no ordered, this by the man once known as a god of shinobi. He certainly had that commanding air around him when he needed it. Hiruzen then took a look at Jiraiya before he said lastly, I want you to make sure no information leaked about Naruto's appearance. If any of the Hyugas caught it. Jiraiya nodded, of course sensei. Hiruzen then looked at the group before he spoke. Now, you are dismissed to your duties. The group, the purple-haired Umbu, and Jiraiya then left the vicinity to do what they were asked. After he was sure everyone other than Tenzo left, he quickly pulled open a part of his desk to reveal many bottles of sake. He kept them here specifically for times like this. Sir, are you sure you should be drinking right now? The remaining Umbu said. Hiruzen looked at him before he said, first, I am Hokage. I don't need you to question what I do. Second, I need it after that mind trip. The Umbu then replied, fair enough, just don't do what you did that one time with your paperwork. The Hokage couldn't help but pout a little before taking a drink. The last time he got drunk in the office he ended up deciding to burn a whole pile of paperwork. And while he regretted it the next day, at the moment it felt great. I'm too old for this shit, he said as he took another drink. Training Ground 3, Kanahigakure, Land of Fire. It was about 2 days after the group returned from Wave when they met up over at the third training ground, the same one the original Team 7 trio used before Wave, mainly during Kakashi's infamous bell test. However, this time they were joined by Haku. Unlike before, however, since her gender had been revealed, why she still wore the same style of clothing, there were at least two differences. The first being that she obviously no longer wore her mask that she used as a hunter-nin disguise, showing her slender, beautiful face and chocolate-color eyes to all. Second was that while before she bandaged her assets down to only be noticeable if her clothes were messed up, now she didn't bandage them as tightly. Of course, Sakura felt her eye twitch for a moment, while her inner self was screaming about the injustice of bust size, but she simply ignored it. Naruto, under a transformation jutsu to hide his fox features, said to the ice user, hey Haku. If you're here, guess that means you passed. Haku nodded with a smile. She had to admit she enjoyed the blonde's enthusiasm. It was almost contagious. She then looked over towards Sasuke, who simply gave the classic Uchiha Chunin. She was now according to the third Hokage part of Team 7. She had taken her exam yesterday, which was fairly easy since she had been trained by a Jonin-level shinobi for years, and unlike him, they weren't basing their test off of wartime standards. Though then again, she also started to wonder if perhaps Zabuza had gone easy on her at times, but decided to not worry about it. Though of course, one thing that she came to be annoyed about in the village was the blasted civilian council. They straight up demanded that she make them children, even more so if it was with the Uchiha. Fortunately Lord Third was tired of their crap as of late, and forbade them from bothering Haku. However, she was also laughing on the inside since if they knew what she knew about Sasuke, it would make them run around like headless chickens. What surprised the entirety of Team 7 though, including Haku herself, was of all the things, Kakashi arrived on time. That's right, for once, he wasn't late. Sakura's face went pale, Sasuke and Haku's eyes grew as wide as saucers, and Naruto started muttering about the apocalypse. Hokage's office. Even the Sandame from his office felt a slight disturbance, just to check his crystal ball to notice that Kakashi was on time for once. The Sandame paused for a moment before he said either Kakashi has decided to take his job seriously or the world is about to end well. Fingers crossed. One of the Umbus in the room responded, oh come on, he's not that bad. The second Umbu then said, oh he is. I remember the one time he arrived a day late to his own birthday party. Then there was the time when he arrived 2 hours late to a funeral for the previous fire demo. That was nearly a disaster. The first Umbu simply blinked in astonishment before they said point taken. Back at the training ground, Kakashi looked at them with a bit of a deadpan before he said, what, am I really that late all of the time? Yes you are. The 4 members of Team 7 as well as several nearby Umbu members said at the same time. Kakashi simply shrugged it off before he said alright. In any case, let's get to work then. First though, Naruto if you would. Naruto nodded before making a single shadow clone for his father to take over. Though since this wasn't a private setting, he stuck with looking like his son. Minato then said to them, I can't teach you each of you everything, but I will at least give you pointers on what you need. We all have our own strong suits that can be worked on. So in any case, I'll be giving you direction, and Kakashi here will make sure you follow on it. Kakashi nodded as he said the words that would begin the next month for the group. Alright then, let's begin. Also, even though we're training, we'll still be doing missions, and you know what that means. The latter part of said sentence made the entirety of Team 7, minus Minato and Kakashi, groan in unison. Sasuke's training. For Sasuke's training, Minato put him under direct supervision of Kakashi, due to his thoughts on how similar their fighting styles were. Kakashi accepted the task with a shrug and Sasuke a H&N. This ended up including 3 things: sparring, practice on using the Sharingan, and also, okay Sasuke, since you know some fire-style jutsus, I want to test your chakra natures. Who knows, maybe you have another element available. Kakashi said as he pulled out a piece of paper. Sasuke knew what the paper was for after all, so he simply took it out of his hand and charged his chakra in it. And the results. Let's see, oh would you look at that, fire and lightning. While you do have your fire style down to par already, the fact you have lightning makes this quite good for you. Kakashi said to Sasuke. And why is that? Sasuke asked the Cyclops Jonin. Because it's my specialty. Kakashi said with one of his eye smiles. Sasuke nodded, being ready for anything. Now for starters, Kakashi spoke as he reached into his pouch. Light these light bulbs. Sasuke wasn't ready for this. Kakashi laughed as he said, oh relax, it could be worse. If you had water affinity, you would have to actually go into the water, and yes, I know that secret. Sasuke looked at him in alarm before he said, don't you dare tell the loudmouth or the fangirl I am definitely not ready for that disaster. It was your choice, you know. Kakashi replied. Sasuke shook his head before he said no, more like dad's. Kakashi thought about this for a moment before he said makes sense. Sakura's training. While Sasuke was off getting the majority of Kakashi's attention, Sakura could only think of her tasks as a hellish boot camp. First, not only did she have to quit dieting. She whined about it at first, but with Kakashi nudging Sasuke, Sasuke convinced her that if she wanted to be a worthy ninja, she needed to stop it. So in the end she obliged. However, it was the second part that made her think of this as a boot camp from hell. Come on Sakura! Embrace the power of youth. Of all the things Kakashi-sensei and Lord Fourth had to do to her, it was to have Might Guy, the bowl-cut training nut of youth, be her fitness instructor. She would have sworn his regime was inhuman if she didn't see what she first couldn't help but think of Guy's clone, as well as their 2 other teammates do so as well. Heck, the one with her brown hair set up in 2 buns, 10-10, she was getting along with out of sympathy. Besides the end of her dieting and training hell though, she was also reporting to the Konoha hospital in order to learn medical ninjutsu, aka Iryujutsu. Lord Fourth said that with her chakra control, she could learn medical ninjutsu or genjutsu quite well. Though she chose the former, mainly because when she told Tenten about her current regime, Tenten told her about the Sannin Tsunade, who was an expert in taijutsu and Iryujutsu. And so, she learned from the medical ninja there so that she could at least get herself up to par as a field medic for the team. Haku's training. While the others were being trained by instructors or so forth, Haku on the other hand was on her own. Minato had recommended to her to expand her repertoire of ice-style jutsu, and possibly water and wind since those were the chakra natures that made up the ice-style chakra nature. This meant testing her control over the ice style as well as improving it. And while she did have a decent amount of water jutsu and control due to Zabuza, on the other hand, this is a bit more difficult than it looks. She thought as she worked on trying to cut a leaf with wind chakra for training. She then looked behind her to see many other leaves that were either partially cut, or damaged in other ways. However, her work on ice style was showing her efforts, she had to admit, without Zabuza hovering over her at the moment. She was getting a little creative with it as the sheer amount of ice and snow all over the training field she was in showed. And of course she did sense a few other presences lying around. However, one presence in particular seemed to scare them from doing anything. She wondered though just what Zabuza was up to though. Zabuza's situation. In comparison to Team 7, Zabuza was getting a bit more of a cold shoulder from the village. However, they were quite cooperative with him. But then again, he did have quite a nasty reputation. It was times like this he really wondered what the fuck was he thinking when he slaughtered that class back in Kiri. In any case though, they ended up accepting his story after several annoying hours of questioning, and Hiruzen would be sending several Umbu to Mist to get some info from there. Meanwhile he decided with Zabuza's skills and current reputation to put him in the Umbu, which he said would allow him to blend in a bit since all the Umbu tend to wear masks. Next thing he knew, he was given the codename Demon, an Umbu mask that went with that, and a job that Zabuza, just from his first glance, accepted with a "I'll take it." His first job with them was to literally guard Haku. The third Hokage told him that one of his less savory acquaintances might attempt to make a move on Haku despite him telling the civilian council Haku was to not be disturbed by them. And while he wasn't given permission to kill, he very much enjoyed making, from what he could tell were emotionless shinobi, actually feel fear. Use the girl he considered his daughter as a farm for ice jutsu users? In their dreams, though he still couldn't help but let his eye twitch every time Haku was enjoying herself in Naruto's company. Heck, the guy he was working with gave a bit of a snicker. As for said boy, Naruto's training that took place away from the rest of the group, so he doesn't need to keep up a transformation jutsu the whole damn time. If Sakura thought she was being put through the ringer, Naruto had it just as hard. His father was training him in a variety of subjects in a special training ground he made under the Namake's estate. At first, Naruto thought it would be great. But now he knew it hurt a lot. First, there was taijutsu training, in which Minato was working on fixing up all of the errors in Naruto's fighting styles, mainly being, Naruto, again, don't run in blind. Think before you do, Minato said to him after putting him in an arm lock. Yug! Darn it! Naruto groaned in annoyance. On the plus side though, he was slowly showing improvement in the subject. As for his ninjutsu, he was getting help from Minato on wind release, which was revealed to be his natural chakra nature. Though of course he ended up getting quite annoyed at the leaf-cutting exercise until Minato recommended using shadow clones, revealing the jutsu's secret to him as well. Besides that, Minato was drilling Naruto in chakra control exercises. Naruto found himself quite annoyed that due to what happened to him, not only did his reserve nearly double in size but his chakra control essentially got cut in half. The Kyuubi seemed to enjoy the free entertainment though of first watching Naruto fall off trees over and over, and later fall into ice water at a lake. Minato asked Haku to cool down beforehand. All of the above was better than his genjutsu though. Due to his abysmal chakra control, the fourth simply taught him how to break genjutsus. As for the training from Kyuubi though, wow, just wow. Hey! I didn't mean to set the whole tree on fire. Naruto pouted. The Kyuubi laughed its evil laugh as it said, flesh bag, it's called right now, you suck. Naruto was quite annoyed with the Kyuubi when it came to the training Naruto how to use the Kyuubi's fox fire. However, it was quite different in learning how to use his new senses. At the point about a month had passed, Naruto's senses were not only controlled, but he even could be said to be better than an Inuzuka. Even the Kyuubi felt like gloating a little that at least one part of the training from the Kyuubi was going better than Minato's. Ha! Take that, fool! Now it's 3-3. Minato ruined its gloating though as he said, you forgot about my little clone trick that you can't do, so actually 4-3. As a result, in the seal the Kyuubi ended up pouting for a bit at him. It swore that if there was one thing for certain, it wouldn't be letting the fourth Hokage of all people get the last laugh. The whole group. However, if there was one thing all of Team 7 minus Kakashi who didn't care and Minato who found it amusing, all despised, it was the D-rank missions, varying from cleaning up someone's yard, painting a fence, babysitting, and the horrid mission of catching the infamous Tora. It was all something they got annoyed about. On the plus side though, there was 1 or 2 C-rank missions that they occasionally did. Of course, in comparison to their first C-rank mission, it wasn't as hectic. But then again, most genin didn't get missions that went from C-rank all the way to A-rank because it turned out your client was being targeted by high-rank missing needs. Though one positive result was the team was improving on their bonds with each other, which was in fact the objective of low-rank missions. Team building, plus the pranks Naruto and Haku sometimes pulled on some of the populace. While it made the two closer, I'll be nice enough to leave the civilians some dignity. Oh, who am I kidding? I'll tell you, they swapped the merchandise of several shops with Naruto's knowledge of Fuinjutsu with Haku doing distractions, messing up many people's sense of heat with well-timed control of fire and ice. And lastly, painting an entire street's worth of civilian shops, who never sell to Naruto for being the Kyuubi brat, in orange paint, outside and inside mind you, and with Haku then freezing it afterwards to make it harder to get off. The third Hokage couldn't help but wonder whether to laugh at the pranks, or blame them for the headaches caused by the civilians afterwards. However, there was also one other thing that occurred during this time, with Jiraiya. Do you understand what I mean, don't tell anyone? Jiraiya said to the young brunette girl with pale eyes. Hinata nodded as she said, I do. Jiraiya then asked her, and do you have fear of him? Hinata then shook her head as she said, no, of course not. I think they make him look cute or cool, I don't know which one. Jiraiya nodded before the moment of realization popped into his head. Amikami, is this the Hyuga they mentioned had a crush on Naruto? Okay, 1, that's a lucky break for us. And 2, that lucky little motherfucker. I know that Ice Girl is into him too, but both of them are gonna grow up to be fine women. It's almost like Minato all over again. Wait a minute, unlike Minato, Naruto could be put under CRA if he wanted to. Hinata was a bit weirded out by the perverted grin that seemed to appear on the Sanin's face before she said Jiraiya-sama? That happened to snap him out of it as his face got back in order as he said, right, you're dismissed. The moment she left, Jiraiya quickly pulled out his notebook before writing down furiously while he thought, my godson is a cammy damn gold mine. I have to make sure though he or his eventual women never know I use them as writing material. I do not need a repeat of what Kushina and Mikoto did to me that one time. In any case, Team 7 trained, Jiraiya wrote for his smut in his notebook, Zabuza simply guarded over his stepdaughter, and the third Hokage suffered the agony of paperwork. With 1 or 2 of those days he had a hangover. And so about a month had passed, and while Team 7 and the other rookie teams remained ignorant of it, the Chunin exams hosted in Konoha would begin soon. Village streets, Kanahigakure, Land of Fire. It had been about a month since the group's regimen of training had begun, and all of them were seeing improvements in their skills. The group had been quite glad with themselves for this, though Sakura still complained a little whenever she had to visit the training Hell Guy had been giving her. Though on the plus side, she could at least, according to Tenten's remarks, now call herself an actual ninja. Heck, she even started to wonder what the heck she was thinking before on restricting herself in the ways she did. If anything, she was pretty sure if she met a past version of herself, she would whip their butt into gear before Kakashi got the bright idea to let the psycho training nut be in charge of her physical fitness. But then again, she couldn't really complain when her previously wimpy punches could now send idiot bandits she met on missions flying. Sasuke, of course, was in a good mood as well, actually smiling a bit more often whenever fangirls weren't around. He ended up improving his taijutsu to be faster and stronger with Kakashi as well as becoming accustomed to the Sharingan. More importantly though, Kakashi also taught the Uchiha several lightning-style jutsus after he got his lightning manipulation up enough. Though Kakashi also promised that if Sasuke got to the finals, he would teach him a very special technique, thus motivating him further to be stronger, though he was still a bit worried about that getting out. He was pretty darn sure Naruto in particular would catch on soon. And in his mind, he knew that with his loud mouth, everyone would hear it. Haku on the other hand managed to learn a few wind-style jutsus, and create a few ice-style ones. Most of them were fairly simple, though she did feel happy with what she accomplished over the month. As for Naruto, let's say at least he was now good enough in Fuinjutsu that he could use seals to hide his fox ears and tail. Though it did restrict his power a little, Minato simply called it a form of training on its own. In any case, the group was walking back from their previous mission, having been a decent success, with a blunder or two, but it didn't cause too many problems. Sakura was doing a bit of screeching at Naruto for one such thing. Next time aim better, darn it, Sakura yelled. Naruto yelped, I said I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. Sasuke simply sighed at the antics of the two, while Haku merely giggled a little before attempting to cool Sakura down. Outside of when she was having fun with pranking with Naruto, she tended to be the mediator of the group. Heck, as Minato saw it, he literally told Kakashi that out of all the group's members, she was the one who kept them glued together. Calm down, Sakura. While I know you liked having your hair long, we at least made it so that it looks fine. Besides, having long hair out in battle isn't always helpful, Haku said to the pinkette, calming her down. During the mission, one of Naruto's flame attacks ended up singeing some of Sakura's hair towards the part that she originally had go down her back. As a result, Haku ended up helping her cut her hair short before they got back. Sakura sighed as she said, I guess you're right. She paused for a moment before she asked, wait, is that why you always style your hair in a bun whenever we're training or on missions? Haku nodded, and Sakura looked slightly downcast as she realized she could have easily avoided the situation if she had a way to keep her hair up while on the job. Naruto tried to comfort her as he said, it's okay, Sakura. Even with short hair you're cute. Sakura for a second nearly thought the boy looked cute as well before she shook her head and said, you're the reason for it in the first place. However, Kakashi picked up on this as he thought, like father like son it seems, always accidentally entrancing women, though in comparison, Naruto might actually end up in a situation Jiraiya would write in his books. Maybe if I give him this info he'll send me an advanced copy. Before Kakashi could ponder his thoughts any further, he noticed a hawk flying in the skies above, one that he recognized. It's that time again, came out of the Scarecrow Sensei's mouth. Naruto picked up on this with his hearing as he said, time for what? Kakashi simply shook his question off with a wave of his hand before he said, don't worry about it. In any case, I'll go ahead and make our report to the Hokage Tower. You four go ahead and enjoy the rest of the day. See ya. He then disappeared in a poof of smoke, though Naruto could sense it was merely a distraction he used for his shunshin. Show off, he thought. After Kakashi left, Sakura went over to Sasuke as she asked, hey Sasuke, want to hang out for a bit? I can buy us lunch. Sasuke shook his head as he said, not right now, got important clan things to do. Later, Sasuke then left the group, waving as he walked away. Though for some reason Naruto smelled something weird about it. A slight smell of blood. Though he shrugged it off, guessing it was probably just a bruise or something. Naruto's mindscape. Meanwhile, inside his seal, the Kyuubi sputtered, trying hard to not laugh, while Minato simply ended up facepalming a little. Minato let out a sigh as he said, it seems my son is quite dense at times. First the Hyuga girl, and now this? The Kyuubi shrugged before it said, well, he gets it from you. Minato looked at the Kyuubi before he said, oh, I wasn't that bad. Kyuubi deadpanned as it replied, Mikoto, Kurenai, and don't even get me started on that fan club. Minato paused for a moment, and swore, oh fuck, you're right. The Kyuubi simply grinned as it gloated and 4-4. Back outside. Of course Naruto heard none of this conversation. He was considering to comfort Sakura before he noticed a square-shaped rock in the middle of the road. He let out a bit of a smile before he said out loud, you know, rocks are supposed to be round, not rectangular. The box then disappeared in a poof of smoke before revealing 3 young children. One being a boy with brown hair and a droopy nose, another being a girl with her hair styled like AV. And lastly, the leader of the group, a boy with black hair with a small top knot poking out on the back of his head. All of them, however, shared the fact they had a set of green goggles like Naruto used to wear. These were Konohamaru and his friends, blasting off at the speed of light. Sir, oh wait, wrong series. As expected from my rival, Konohamaru said as he pointed at Naruto. The blonde smirked as he replied, alright Konohamaru, what is it this time? The girl with the orange hair answered, you were gonna play ninja with us today, remember? Ah right, well I guess I got time. Naruto noted. Sakura looked at him with a cocked eyebrow before she said, a ninja playing ninja, really? Naruto replied back to her, well, it's important for a future Hokage to be able to work well with future subordinates, right? So why not make said bonds now? Sakura was considering admonishing him, but she realized he did have a point in that regard. She still found it weird that sometimes Naruto actually sounded a bit sagely, but figured he was maturing a bit, but then again, still Naruto. Haku simply nodded as she said, I see, it does make sense. Konohamaru pulled Naruto over for a second before he asked, so which one is your lady friend, if you know what I mean? For a moment, one could see a slight blush on the two kunoichi's faces, but it disappeared just as quickly, Sakura more so with the next remark. Konohamaru then said, wait, never mind, it's definitely not the pink one, she's kinda ugly in a few ways. While pointing at Sakura, Haku couldn't help but sweat drop at the child's ignorance, and Naruto started sweating bullets. Even Minato couldn't help but say, oh dear. Meanwhile, Sakura's hair hung over her face, and started cracking her knuckles. Naruto slowly turned his head towards Konohamaru before he said a single word. Run. Next thing Naruto and Konohamaru's friends knew, they were running from an angry Sakura, who was very ready, and willing to send at least one of the brats flying. She wasn't going to go full force on them, but just enough to teach them a lesson, and Naruto too, since he did have some influence on the brats. However, plans changed when Konohamaru cut a corner and ran into a young man in completely black clothing, with the hood on top looking like a cat, and lastly, purple war paint on his face in an ever so delicate pattern, or for those of you of the comedic sort, makeup. Konohamaru fell down, and the youth's pants were stained with dirt as a result. The youth, being annoyed, grabbed the child by his collar before he said, hey twerp, what are you doing running into me like that? A second youth, a girl with purple clothing that ended with fish netting on the arms and legs, and lastly a giant fan on her back, walked over as she said, Kankuro, put him down. We don't want to cause a scene. Kankuro simply shrugged as he said, it's fine sis, I'm just gonna first teach him a bit about respecting his elders. They won't whine too much. Naruto and Ko then confronted them as Kankuro held up Konohamaru. Naruto yelled at the duo, well mainly at Kankuro, hey, put him down. Kankuro looked over at the blonde before he said, hey, just give me a sec here. Kankuro, pay attention. She said to try and get Kankuro to stand down. Kankuro then noticed that Naruto, Sakura, and also Haku, who had been following the previous chase, were all wearing a Konoha headband. Oh, so you guys are genins from around here? Kankuro said with a bit of a shrug. Sakura stared at the two dead in the eyes after noticing the duo's own headbands. It depicted an hourglass, and you two are from sand. What are you doing here anyways? Sakura said in response. Temari replied, oh you didn't hear, the Chunin exams are soon. Speaking of, Kankuro, stop making a scene, darn it. Kankuro started to say, oh come on, at least let me give him a. However, he stopped when he noticed that Naruto was no longer at his previous location, but instead right behind him, with a kunai hung in front of his neck. I said, put the Hokage's grandson down, Naruto said in a demanding tone. On the inside, he really had to thank his dad and Kyuubi for teaching him how to affect his surroundings just by merely changing his tone and demeanor. Kankuro, in his shock, carefully put the child down onto his feet. Meanwhile, Temari was both shocked at the blonde's speed and the fact that he basically just saved their butts from an international incident. That would have been a problem. Naruto then put his kunai away before walking towards his teammates and Konohamaru's friends before he turned towards a nearby tree and said, hey, you can come out now. I know you're there. At that point, a boy with short red hair, pale blue eyes, and black lining around his eyes, that wore a set of ninja-light ninja gear that included a lot of netting, and a large gourd on his back shined onto the street in between the Konoha and Suna ninja. Jigara. Kankuro muttered with a bit of fear in his eyes. Gaara started at Kankuro with emotionless eyes as he said, you're a disgrace, Kankuro. You let yourself be carried away just from a bit of dirt on your clothes. Next time though, I'll kill you. Ugh. Gaara turned towards Temari as he then added on, and Temari, you need to control Kankuro better. I am sorry, Gaara, the blonde said to the redhead. At this point, Naruto asked Gaara, who are you? Gaara looked at the Uzumaki with his expressionless face before he said, I am Gaara of the Sand, and yours? Naruto Uzumaki. Gaara looked away for a moment as he said, I will remember that name. I hope you come to the Chunin exams to fight. You would help prove my existence. The other two Sannin seemed very frightened at the mark before Gaara then made his way past him and towards where the Suna ninja were staying, causing them to both leave as well. Naruto let out a sigh before he remarked, well, that happened. Haku nodded in agreement, happy the tense situation was over for the time being. Sakura bent down towards Konohamaru as she apologized for causing them to get in that situation. Meanwhile, Naruto was having his own thoughts. The weird thing though, was the redhead smelled a lot like a tanuki. And blood, lots of blood. To be fair, that was probably the Jinchuriki of the one-tailed beast Shikaku, who is very, very well known for being quite insane. And I mean the murder kind of insane. The Kyuubi spoke to him. Naruto had already gone over a bit about each of the bijus at one point of their training. Naruto's response to this was, oh fuck. The next day, Kanahigakure, Land of Fire. The group was at one of the many bridges in the village waiting for Kakashi to show up. Unlike before, he asked them to meet here today rather than the training grounds. And of course, before they could even talk much, especially Naruto since he still had Shikaku's Jinchuriki on his mind, Kakashi once again arrived on time. Though after a month of this, Everyone was used to it now rather than wondering if the world was going to end before long. Hello my students, today I have a bit of a proposition for you, Kakashi said with his eye smile. Sasuke looked at Kakashi and asked, and that would be? Kakashi then pulled out 4 sheets of paperwork that were some type of form as he said, I recommended you 4 to the Chunin exam. While normally Naruto would have been jumping for joy at this, he also realized that the moment he stepped into the exam, he would likely have to face Gaara at some point. He then shrugged it off, deciding that as a fellow Jinchuriki he could take him on, and who knows, maybe become friends. Naruto returned to his normal, happy-go-lucky mood as he took one of the forms from his sensei as he said, thank you sensei. Sasuke thought it would be a good place to figure out where he stood amongst their generation of ninja, though he also thought it may also be an opportunity to reveal that secret. Haku looked at the form, thinking that things would be interesting, and if Naruto was going, she would as well. Besides, it would also allow her to be a step closer to Zabuza's level. Meanwhile, Sakura stared at the form with a determined look on her face before she asked, is this why you tossed me over to Guy? Kakashi simply gave her a nod before she said, then I'm going. If I had to go through all that crap just to skip out on what it was for, I'd be very annoyed with myself. Kakashi couldn't help but I smiled once more. His students were all growing up so well. Alright then, go to the academy tomorrow then at the specified time. From there, all I can do is wish you luck, he said as he then made his leave. He was originally going to say something so none of them would be peer pressured into entering the exams. But all of them seemed eager, so he simply took the lazy route and let that be. Though however, Naruto, as well as Minato and the Kyuubi, couldn't help but shake one feeling, that the calm they had at the moment was going to be replaced with the storm before long. In front of the Konoha Ninja Academy, Konohagakure, Land of Fire. The next day, the team of 4 found themselves standing in front of the academy, where within, the Chunin exams awaited them. Haku asked, so, are you ready? Naruto, and Sakura as well, pumped their fists with a grin as they responded, heck yeah. We're gonna win this. Though Naruto also added a databao. At the end, Sasuke merely nodded with a HNN, as well as a smirk on his face. Haku simply nodded, happy the rest of her team were in high spirits. The group then walked in and headed up the stairs. As they walked up the stairs, they saw a large line of people headed towards a door that was being guarded by 2 other genins. Why won't you let us in? We're here for the Chunin exams. One voice spoke. Sakura facepalmed for a moment, as she recognized that voice a bit too well. One of the genin at the door sneered as he said, we can't let you weaklings get in the exam. It isn't a place for chumps. Go home, brat. At this point, Sakura was about to tell them they should just go up to the next floor since this was actually just the 2nd floor under a genjutsu. But then the source of the voice, Might Guy's student, Rock Lee, noticed her. Oh hey! Sakura-chan. He then dashed over to where she was, no longer pretending to be injured from the genins, who did widen their eyes for a moment as they realized they got played a little. But they ignored it for the time being. Sakura couldn't help but let out a sigh, before she spoke highly. Lee let out one of his cheesy smiles, which ended up making the rest of Team 7 a bit weirded out, before he said, so you're here for the Chunin exams, right? That's excellent. We can both show our power of youth and love if you will accept it. Sakura shot him down instantly though with a yes, I'm here for the Chunin exams, and for the last time Lee, no means no. Lee looked a bit downcast before his 2 other teammates, a boy with long brown hair and pale eyes like Hinata's, and Tenten, joined the group. Tenten grabbed Lee as she said, Lee, I know you like her, but you really should give up at this point. She's already shot you down more than 50 times. Also hi Sakura. While Sakura ended up having a short chat with Tenten, Naruto went over to Lee as he asked, you also get rejected by Sakura a lot? Lee said to him sadly, yes, but I will not falter. Naruto gave the green spandex boy a nod, before he then put a hand on Lee's shoulder, as he said, I understand you very well in that regard. Maybe someday she'll actually accept someone other than the Edgelord. Believe it. At this point, the 2 ended up making a strange bond of sorts, which Sakura didn't notice. Sasuke simply decided to ignore, and Haku couldn't help it as a giggle escaped from her mouth. Meanwhile, Neji looked at Sasuke before he called to him. Sasuke Uchiha? Sasuke looked at him and asked, and you are? Neji Hyuga. I hear you were the top of your class, as was I. I hope to see just what you can do, though I will show you just whose Dijitsu is superior. Neji answered him. Sasuke simply gave him a quick HNN. Neji smirked a bit. He then walked towards the stairs, his 2 teammates trailing along with him. Sakura then said, well, guess we should head up too then? The team nodded in agreement, just as they were about to head up the stairs though Naruto decided to ruin the genins' fun. Hey guys, by the way, this is actually the 2nd floor. Also those 2 aren't genins. By now, everyone who had been fooled by the genjutsu had their eyes widened before they all realized they had been played, and were now rushing towards the stairs. And the 2 genins who had been exposed undid their transformations and were going to chase after Naruto. But by that time, he was gone. Upstairs, Sakura deadpanned at the blonde ninja before she asked, did you really have to do that? It was worth it. I regret nothing. Naruto replied with a foxy grin. Haku gave him a thumbs up as she enjoyed it as well. Sasuke added, okay, it was kinda funny. Sakura couldn't help but nod at the least to Sasuke's statement about it. The group then walked down the hall to the door they were supposed to enter, finding not only their sensei, but Lee's team as well as their sensei. While originally everyone other than Sakura would have made some reaction about Might Guy's eyebrows, they were too distracted by the fact the true ultimate genjutsu was occurring before their eyes. Guy and Lee were having a master/student moment where they were crying and hugging each other, with a cliff overlooking the ocean with the sunset was occurring behind them. Haku was questioning reality. Sasuke was constantly trying to dispel the nightmare-like genjutsu. Meanwhile, Naruto, in his curiosity, grabbed one of the rocks from the cliffside and then tossed it, and as a result it went into the water below. What kind of sick genjutsu is this? Naruto couldn't help but think. The Kyuubi cried out, "Turn it off. I don't want this burned into my memory." Minato meanwhile shrugged as he shook his head. He had seen it enough times already between Might Guy and Guy's father. It was too late for him. Meanwhile, Sakura walked over to them before bopping them both on the head as she yelled, "Can't you not mentally scar us with that, damn it?" The fact that from what Kakashi could tell that punch actually hurt Guy, his sweat dropped a bit. Though he had to admit he was impressed that Sakura could actually ignore the effects of the nightmare fuel and disable it. But then again, she tended to play straight man, or woman, a lot to Naruto's hijinks. Tenten gave Sakura a thumbs up, as she was the one who taught her how to do that, and Niji meanwhile, grabbed Lee and then went into the exam room, with Tenten following after. Kakashi smiled as he looked at the group and said, "Well, that was interesting, and I'm glad you all made it here. Just remember to work as a team, and I'm sure you'll do fine." After that, the team then went into the doors, leaving the two senseis alone for the moment. "How hard did she hit you, by the way?" Guy stopped holding the bump on his head. He then replied, "Well, about as hard as Kushina in her prime." Kakashi couldn't help but shiver at the thought. If she could hit as hard as Kushina, the second most physically strong female ninja he had known, he was terrified at what level she might get to later on. In the room for the Chunin exams, as the group of 4 entered the room, they were met with the stares of the many other participants. Some were curious, some were annoyed more brats showed up, others didn't really give much of a crap, and more. Of course, the group didn't seem too bothered by it. Even Sakura, who originally was a weak link in the team, didn't seem perturbed too much. "Quite a decent amount of people," Haku said as she started to gauge some of the other participants. Sakura responded to her, "Well, based on those Suna shinobi yesterday, there's probably a good amount of people from other villages." Naruto, in his usual attitude towards life, simply said, "Then all we gotta do is prove we're the best." Sasuke was about to do his usual HNN, but was then interrupted by what was to him a very unwelcome hug. "Hey Sasuke-kun, did you miss me?" The blonde who hugged him from behind said with a bit of flirting in her tone. Sakura yelled at her, "Hands off, Ino pig." Ino then looked towards the pinkette and said, "But I don't want a forehead, I like this." While she was distracted, Sasuke got himself out of her hug, much to said blonde's disappointment when he did so. At this point though, her two teammates walked over, one of which spoke, "Ino, stop being troublesome." The one who spoke was Shikamaru Nara, a boy with short black hair with a single top knot in the back, who wore a short gray vest over a t-shirt and netting with a similar pair of shorts. He, like much of his clan, was known to be a genius, but also like his clan, he was quite lazy. Ino then retorted, "And how about you stop being lazy?" Shikamaru simply replied, "Too troublesome to do so." Meanwhile, Ino's other teammate went over to Naruto and asked, "Hi Naruto, been well?" This person was Choji Akamichi. He was a big-boned boy with a hat of sorts on his head so that his light brown hair went up through the 2 openings. He tended to wear a green coat over his shirt that had the character for meat on it. While he had what some would call a black hole for a stomach, he was also quite a kind kid as long as you didn't call him fat. Naruto let a smile come to his face as he greeted as always Choji. "Also hi Shikamaru." To which Shikamaru simply replied with a nod. He was too lazy to come up with an actual response. He was on decent terms with these 2 out of his classmates from the academy. The 2 boys were some of the very, very few kids Naruto hung out with when he was younger. They had good times indeed, one could say. Lots of getting into trouble, and sometimes one or both of them ended up being pulled into Naruto's pranks. Shikamaru then noticed their team of 4 before he said, "You know, I heard you guys got an extra member, but I never got the chance to meet them, but then again, that would be troublesome." Naruto simply shrugged as he told Haku, "Okay, basically the lazy guy is Shikamaru. He's smart, but also too lazy to use it more often than not. That one is Choji. He's a nice guy and can pack a decent punch, just don't call him the F word. And lastly the blonde there is Ino, another Sasuke fangirl who is also the rumor mill." Ino couldn't help to retort, "I'm not the rumor mill." Shikamaru couldn't help but sarcastically add, "Sure you aren't." With a short glare from Ino, Shikamaru simply sighed, "What a drag." At this point the other team from their year came over to join them, which started with one of them saying, "Hey, looks like the gang's all here." This boy was Kiba Inuzuka, a member of a clan that worked closely with their ninja dogs, aka Niken. He had short brown hair and black eyes, with 2 triangle marks on his face that were shared amongst the clan. He wears a gray hoodie that had the hood and sleeves ending with a bit of brown fur. And on top of his head was his Niken partner, Akamaru. The dog was essentially a small puppy at this point in time, with rounded floppy ears. Though supposedly based on all the other Niken their clan used, he would become as big as a human if not more in due time. He also considered himself an alpha male, though everyone agreed that he wasn't. The second member who joined the group was Hinata Hyuga, in her tan jacket as she always was. Of course, she went over towards Naruto as she greeted him with a "Hi Naruto-kun." Naruto replied to her with a "Hey Hinata, how have you been?" Hinata responded back to him with a "G good." She had a blush and smile on her face as she was happy the boy, her crush, responded back to her. Of course he remained oblivious to her blushing as he said to Kiba, "So, how have you been, Kiba?" Kiba looked at the blonde boy as he smirked, "Doing well. How about you? Thinking of quitting yet, loser?" "No way in hell, dog breath." Haku looked at the two of them before she asked their third teammate, "Are they always like this?" Said teammate was Shino Abirame, a boy with dark brown spiky hair who always wore sunglasses and a jacket that covered the lower half of his face. He tended to be a quiet individual, but let's just say, don't fuck with the guy who can instant summon a horde of chakra devouring insects. Yes. Naruto and Kiba have had a bit of a rivalry going for a while. Both of them are too stubborn to quit though. Shino answered her. At this point Kiba noticed Haku, and of course, couldn't help his instincts as an alpha male. "Hey there, hot stuff, what's your name?" At this point, the group had several reactions. Sakura simply facepalmed, Sasuke let out a sigh, and Naruto actually felt a little annoyed. He couldn't guess the exact reason other than maybe it was because Haku was his friend. Elsewhere in Konoha, Zabuza couldn't help but feel annoyed about something, like more so than when Naruto and Haku were together with each other. He decided he would figure out why later though. But if someone was hitting on Haku he probably would have to, and a quote, "cut a bitch." Haku however simply responded with a "my name is Haku. Also, hit on me like that again, and I will use my Senbon on you and trust me, you don't." To that, Kiba quickly backed away with a yelp, much to the amusement of the rest of the group. Haku had already gotten annoyed with some of the civilians hitting on her before. And let's just say if Zabuza didn't get to them first, they'd be riddled with a few Senbons so that they would be paralyzed for an hour or so, plus maybe doing a bit of a prank while she was at it. However, the group's merriment was cut short by a gray-haired teenager. He said to them, "Hey, how about you kids quiet down, this isn't some sort of field trip here." The gray-haired teenager walked over to them. He had his hair done with a tail in the back, and wore black-rimmed glasses on his face, and a black uniform of sorts on his body. However, Naruto was interested in something else that he noticed was unusual. "Is it just me, or does something reek about him? Like I don't know a snake?" "Yeah, probably snakes." This happened to spring alarms in both Minato and the Kyuubi, considering they knew only a few people connected to snakes. One in particular was quite a problem. However, both the Fox and ex-Hokage agreed to wait on it at the moment. They didn't want to jump to conclusions just yet. Naruto asked the teenager, "Who are you?" "I'm Kabuto Yakushi. I'm here for the Chunin exams just like you, although this is my 7th attempt." Kiba couldn't help but reply, "Wow, you must suck then." Kabuto shrugged before he said, "More like my luck is bad. But as a result, I know a decent amount about the exams. Plus I've also been using the exams as practice for my info-gathering skills." Shikamaru simply nodded as he spoke. "Yeah, that makes sense. Might as well make what you can from it. What can you tell us though?" Kabuto used his hand to push up his glasses before he explained, "Well, for starters, the exams tend to be separated into 3 parts, though what occurs in the parts tends to change every time. The only real constant is that the third and final part is that the remaining participants fight in front of those from other nations as well as their own." Naruto was excited at the idea of fighting in a sort of tournament to show how awesome he was, along with Kiba. Sasuke thought it was interesting, but didn't really show it. Shikamaru simply nodded as he waited for Kabuto to continue. "As for my info-gathering skills, I've determined the amount of applicants that have entered from each nation. While the majority is from Konoha, there's a few from Suna, and others from some of the surrounding smaller countries. Earth and Lightning obviously wouldn't show up. And not many people really know what's going on in Mizu right now since they've been closed off." Kabuto explained further. He then pulled out a deck of cards as he then spoke, "And lastly, these are my pride and joy, my ninja info cards. I've managed to compile the data on a majority of the genins here. Though if some things are missing, don't be surprised." This seemed to pique the interest of Naruto, Sasuke, Kiba, and Shikamaru. The first 3 had some people in mind they wanted info on. Meanwhile, the latter was interested in what kind of info he had. The first to ask was Sasuke. "What can you tell me about Neji Hyuga and his team?" Kabuto in response laid out 3 cards before charging chakra into them. The cards then showed the group the info Kabuto had gathered. It showed a portrait of them, who their sensei was, their attributes in the ninja arts, a bit of text, and lastly, most important to at least 2 people there, the number and rank of missions they've been on. While Shikamaru simply just thought of it as him maybe knowing some of the Chunin who did the mission requests, Minato was somewhat alarmed. It meant this boy had very, very good information gathering skills. But more importantly, he had to know at least one thing in particular. If he was right, he planned to warn Naruto and Ko about just what might be coming for them. Meanwhile, Kabuto began his explanations. Neji Hyuga is a member of the branch family of the Hyuga clan. His team consists of Rock Lee and Tenten, with Might Guy as their sensei. Mission-wise, he and his team have done the usual Ds, with a few Cs and 1 or 2 B-rank missions, though I wouldn't be surprised since they decided to wait a year before entering the exams. He tends to specialize in his clan's taijutsu, which focuses on immobilizing their opponent, as well as dealing internal damage. Lastly, he was the top shinobi of his class. So he might be a decent challenge. Next we have Tenten. Not from a clan, but fairly decent. From what I can tell, she's a weapon specialist, but not anything worth extreme mention in comparison to her teammates. Though the fact she's been with Might Guy for a year does say some things considering how enthusiastic he is about training. Sakura couldn't help but shudder at the last remark. She knew quite well what he meant. Kabuto then continued. And lastly we have Rock Lee. He relies entirely on taijutsu due to an issue with his chakra coils. However, it can be noted his taijutsu skills are within the Chunin level, or higher. So if you ever have to fight him, my recommendation is Genjutsu. After that Sasuke simply let out a HNN as he then let the next person go, which was Kiba. What can you tell me about Haku from Konoha? This caused the rest of the group to let out a sweat drop. He was clearly still showing his attraction to her. But they all knew she would likely never return it after she threatened him earlier. Kabuto shrugged as he put away the previous 3 cards and pulled out another one that he then put his chakra into. Let's see here. Haku is a member of Team 7 who joined a month ago, and her teammates are Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno. I will say 4-member teams are a bit rare, but based on their mission record I'd say it works. As a team they've done the usual D missions with some C-rank ones. However, here's where things get interesting. She originally came here with Team 7 and Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the hidden mist. From what I know, both have joined the village, though I don't know where Zabuza is at the moment. Also, she seems to have a Kenkai Genkai that lets her use ice style. Quite impressive. Kiba couldn't help but gawk at the info. Not only did said girl have a bloodline, but she also had connections to one of the most infamous shinobi from Mist. He could already imagine what Zabuza would do to him if he got fresh with Haku, and thus, Kiba decided to give up on trying to woo Haku. Before Naruto could ask Kabuto, he heard Minato tell him, Naruto, other than whoever you ask about yourself. Say you just want to see how you stack up. Something seems a bit fishy here. After listening to his father's advice, he asked Kabuto Gaara of the Sand and his team and myself. Kabuto gave him a smirk. Narcissist much? Naruto shot right back as his father recommended, just want to see how I stack up. Kabuto gave him a shrug before he replied, fair enough. He then pulled out another 4 cards before he went into his explanations. Gaara of the Desert, the son of the current Kazekage. His teammates are Temari and Kankuro, who happen to be his siblings, and his sensei is Baki. He's got a pretty good mission record of only a few DS, a lot of CS, and even a few BS. While I don't have too much info though, supposedly he's never gotten a single scratch when on mission. Next we have Temari. From what I know she tends to use wind-style jutsu in tandem to the fan she has on her back. Not much else I can note otherwise. And here we have Kankuro. I unfortunately don't have too much info on him either, other than he carries this one bandage thing on his back and the fact he wears face paint. I say it's makeup, Naruto noted as a joke. It managed to cause some of the others to stifle a laugh. And further in, Temari overheard it, and also couldn't help but stifle a laugh as well, much to her brother Kankuro's confusion. To each their own, I suppose. Now then, finally we have Naruto Uzumaki, the dead last of the latest set of genin from Konoha. His teammates are Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. From what's known, his favorite jutsu is the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and he hates the normal clone jutsu. That makes sense considering chakra control, I guess. And his mission record is the usual DS, some CS, 1B and 1A that originally started as AC rank. Wow, don't know how you survived that one. The rest of the group, excluding his teammates, were all a bit shocked. Naruto had an A-class mission under his belt and survived it? A few of them, mainly Ino and Kiba, for a moment couldn't help but consider revising their opinion on the boy. On the other hand, Naruto was having a bit of a chuckle on the outside but on the inside. Oh fuck. How does he know about that B rank? The old man said what happened with Mizuki was supposed to be kept under wraps. What the hell? Essentially due to what happened with Mizuki, the third Hokage decided to count it as a B-rank mission for Naruto since he did essentially beat up a rogue Chunin. Though of course it was also classified due to the information of the Kyuubi being leaked to Naruto. Plus it gave the boy a bit of money as a sort of pseudo-graduation present. But anyways, Minato calmed the boy as he said, calm down Naruto. Good news is there's nothing about your more recent things in here, so it's not like he and whoever he's working with know about your transformation and new abilities. However, if he's working for who I think he's working for, it's best to not trust him. Alright? Even if he wasn't working for that snake, I wouldn't trust this guy further than I can toss him. And I have a really good throwing arm. The Kyuubi added on. This managed to calm Naruto down for the moment. However, 4 people managed to notice Naruto's chuckle was fake. Shikamaru was the first one since he also sometimes did so. He was curious as to why the most extroverted person he knew did so, but he decided it would be a drag to try and find out. Haku and Sakura noticed this as well, though they also couldn't put a finger on why he did so. Both of them in their minds decided they would ask him about it later. Meanwhile, Sasuke instantly caught why Naruto was panicking. He knew the team had never been on a B-rank mission, especially since the disaster that was the mission in the Land of Waves. He guessed that whatever it was something people were not supposed to know about. He, like his two female teammates, also decided he would ask Naruto about it later. Meanwhile, Kabuto decided to put away his cards and spoke. In any case, if there's anyone else you guys need a bit of info on, I can show you. However, one of the new, smaller villages, Sound, I haven't gotten much info on their ninja. Though for all we know, they could either be strong, or just small time. As if on cue, hint hint, one of said ninja from Sound decided to make their move. He was wearing a gray jacket lined with fur, and had his head covered in bandages save for his eyes and Sound headband. He rushed towards Kabuto, his footsteps alarming both him and the rookie 9. Small time? I'll show you small time. The Sound Nin yelled as he made a hook punch as Kabuto. Kabuto managed to dodge in time though as he moved away from the Sound Nin, the punch barely missing his face. However, a moment afterwards Kabuto's glasses then broke, and eyes bulged and he kneeled on the floor, his last meal coming up in the process. What the? Also ugh. Naruto said as he then pinched his nose shut, and Kiba did the same. It was at times like these heightened senses only made things worse. Small time that, glasses? The Sound Nin said as he stood up normally. Naruto finally had enough as he yelled, what was that for bastard? The Sound Nin looked at Naruto as he said, 1. It's dosu, not bastard. 2nd, someone had to teach the rat some manners. While Naruto was considering attacking him, he also noticed something else. Much like Kabuto, this guy also smelled of snakes. At this point the Kyuubi couldn't help but say okay, once is coincidence, twice is suspicious, especially if this is a new nation. And me and Minato both know there's one rogue ninja who uses snakes. Naruto couldn't help but mentally ask them, and that would be? However, his question went unanswered as a cloud of smoke appeared at one of the sets of doors, with a voice that yelled, alright, that's enough. Any more fighting from here on unless you are required to do so is forbidden. From the smoke appeared a set of Konoha ninja, made up of Chunins and Jonins, led by a man who wore a black coat and a bandana, and had a face riddled with scars. At this point, the Sound Nin sighed as he backed away, but gave the rookie 9 and Kabuto a glare that implied it's not over before he went back towards where his team was. The man continued, my name is Ibiki Marino. I will be the proctor of the first section of the exam. Please come here to take a number from the lot, and then enter the next room. From there, sit at the seat that matches with said number. Everyone nodded as they followed his instructions, though Naruto couldn't help but have a bad feeling as to what was going to happen next. Though he was at least mildly satisfied that one of the people he was kinda friendly with, Hinata, was sitting next to him. He also couldn't help but notice that he could actually hear her heartbeat, but he just assumed it was because she was as nervous as he was. Ibiki then pulled out a stack of papers as he then explained the test and its rules. It was a paper test. I'm screwed, Naruto thought. Meanwhile both Minato and Kyuubi sweat dropped as they couldn't help but think back to Kushina, who had a similar reaction back when she had her own run in the Chunin exams. Before long the test was handed out and they were ordered to begin. Of course, Naruto was in panic on the inside with Minato getting him to stop after a little bit. Meanwhile, both Haku and Sasuke as they heard the rules realized they were supposed to cheat without getting caught, and Sakura due to her studies already knew the answers and just simply worked on her sheet. Haku managed to get one of her ice mirrors to appear out of everyone's notice as she used its reflection to get the answers. Sasuke was using his Sharingan to copy off people he thought were doing well, though he felt he really hit home on his first target. As for Naruto, wait, we're supposed to cheat? Kyuubi growled at him, duh. Everyone else is doing it already. Have you not noticed? At this point, Naruto used his senses on the area around him and noticed that everyone was using all sorts of forms to cheat. Be it jutsus, well-placed mirrors, and even a floating sand eyeball. Naruto then asked, hey dad, can I? No, I'm not giving you the answers. Just think out of the box. Minato answered him. Naruto inwardly swore, before an idea came to his mind. He then carefully pulled one of his hands down to one of his pockets, and grabbed a small smoke bomb from it. Well, here goes yeet. He then tossed it from under his desk, past where Hinata sat, and a few more seats over until it landed under the desk of one of the participants, blowing up into a cloud of smoke. As a result it clouded the entire front row and some of the row behind them. Okay, who's the wise guy? Ikibi yelled, though on the inside he thought it was a fair play since he couldn't tell which of them threw it. Meanwhile within the smoke, Naruto quickly summoned a shadow clone and had it transform into the smallest thing he could do, a fly. Minato smiled as he said, yeah, that's outside of the box. Meanwhile the Kyuubi thought it would be hilarious if someone swatted the transformed clone down. As the smoke settled, all it revealed was all the participants at their seats. And so, everyone was none the wiser as a fly flew up to the ceiling. Ibiki then barked, alright, I don't know which one of you did that, but if it happens again, I'm deducting points from all of you in the front row. All of them couldn't help but pale a little before they went back to their tests. Though Naruto knew he probably wouldn't need to do so again. Sasuke caught on to what Naruto did due to his Sharingan, and mentally admitted that it was a solid plan. The two Hyugas in the test noticed as well. Hinata was impressed at how Naruto came up with such an idea. She was a bit worried that she would have to help him cheat by showing him her answers. Meanwhile Neji thought while the idea was dumb, it worked, so he had to give him some points in that regard. Meanwhile Haku and Sakura had a feeling it was Naruto who did it, especially when a fly landed near Sakura's paper and did what looked like a wave at her. She simply rolled her eyes at that and let the clone take a look at her answers before it flew away and dispelled itself somewhere, though not before it went to troll some poor shop owner that wouldn't sell to Naruto due to him being a demon. With that, its memories were sent to the original Naruto, who had held back a laugh at the memory of a shopkeeper desperately trying to swat him as the clone kept landing all over the man's body, which also caused said shopkeeper to hit themselves in the balls 3 times, proceeded to write in the answers he got from Sakura. He also quickly wrote something on the back of the paper before he flipped it back up. Just as he did so, Ibiki barked, "Alright, it's time for the 10th question." "Okay, screw it, this is taking too long. I'm just going to say everything went as it did in canon," from where Ibiki explained the rules, some of the people deciding to quit, and Naruto making his statement so that Hinata didn't quit out of fear. Yada yada yada? Okay, back to actually writing the story. As a result of Naruto's little speech, no one else left the room, causing Ibiki to smile as he said, "Well then, congratulations. Everyone here has passed the first exam." Yeah. After Ibiki's remark that the remaining people in the room had passed the exam, as well as the group's reaction, save for a few such as Gaara, Ibiki let out a grin as he explained the purpose of the exam to them. "For the first 9 questions, we set up the rules to force you to cheat in order to test your skills in gathering information discreetly. A ninja needs to be able to be skilled in gathering such info from their enemies for their nations at times. Though the one with the smoke bomb, I'll give you credit that rather than discretion, you went for distraction, so nice one. Just don't think it'll work every time." Naruto fought the urge to scratch the back of his head at that remark. Then Temari asked, "Then what about the last question? What was the point of that?" Ibiki then gave his answer. "That was the most important part of the test. Say you're given a mission that will likely put your lives on the line, and if it succeeds, will greatly help your village, but you have the choice whether to accept or reject it. Obviously a true Chunin would take it, despite the risks, in order to support their village." He then took his bandana off, showing the scars that ran all over it from numerous types of torture. He then put his bandana back on. "One of the things Lord Third has said is a shinobi is one who endures. They have to in order to not only accomplish their mission, but make sure their comrades get back in one piece. And that is what I leave to you all as the first exam proctor." He was about to conclude the first part, but out of the corner of his eye he could see the black ball flying towards the windows from outside. Naruto noticed it as well from the noise it made before he said, "What the fuck?" He didn't get to finish as the ball broke through the window, and as it made it to the middle of the room, it unfurled into a banner as Kunai stuck the edges of it to the ceiling and floor, and from it, a purple-haired kunoichi wearing a tan jacket, netting, and a short skirt that left very little to the imagination landed in the middle of the room. "Alright brats. I'm Anko Mitarashi, the second exam proctor," she yelled. In response to her actions, the majority of the people had 3 reactions. 1. They were blinking as they tried to process the information. 2. They were being perverts as they saw the little amount of clothes she wore. And 3. They were asking themselves what the hell is going on. However, some responded differently. Well, at least 3 of them. Gaara didn't really care, however. Naruto and Haku both thought that was actually kinda cool. Bad timing though, but I should ask her how to do that. I can think of a few pranks with that. After said thought though, Naruto noticed that Anko too smelled of snakes, though in comparison it was different from the musty smell from Kabuto and the sound needs. To be fair, she is Orochimaru's student. Both of them use snake summons. Though unlike Orochimaru, Anko isn't like that man, Minato said to satisfy Naruto's curiosity. The Kyuubi also added to that he means she isn't a psycho bent on immortality and not a pedophile. Minato looked at the Kyuubi for a moment with a stare. "What? I'm not wrong." Naruto then responded, "True enough, hence why we left that warning, though knowing our team's luck, we'll end up having to confront him probably." Minato wanted to deny that, but then again, Team 7's first C-rank mission turned from a simple escort into an A-rank job to save an entire country. The Kyuubi simply shrugged, before it said, "How about we pay attention to the proctor for now?" Naruto simply nodded as he focused back on the outside world. He even happened to get back just in time. "Well, I'll be cutting their numbers down in half. Alright all of you, the first part is over. For those continuing, you're to be at the entrance to Training Ground 44 in less than an hour. I'll see you there, so get moving." And as the proctor then jumped out the window, the rest of the remaining participants, including the Rookie 9, Team Guy, the Sannin, and so on, left the room. Ibiki watched the last of them go as he then went to start collecting the test papers. They would be used in order to help evaluate the participants who managed to get to the third part, though said participants didn't need to know that. However, as he picked up Naruto's paper, he noticed an arrow on the side that implied for him to check the back. As he flipped it over, it read as such: Kabuto and the sound needs suspicious. Smells like that snake. Ibiki's eyes went wide as he then ordered one of the nearby Umbu to quickly take the note to Lord Third. As head of the Torture and Interrogation Corps, he had been one of the few notified about Naruto's problem, but he didn't mind. Heck, he found how it happened quite entertaining. So he chose to trust the boy on the smell part. He sighed as what became a fun bit of mentally trolling children for a day turned into what could become a fiasco. Training Ground 44, Kanahegakure, Land of Fire. Meanwhile, all the participants who passed the first part of the exam had arrived at the entrance to Training Ground 44. What they saw was a large forest surrounded by metal fencing. It was much different from the surrounding area in that the trees were much taller, and from within, the genins could hear the sounds of a variety of animals, which included a few roars from tigers. Anko was standing in front of the fence with a smirk on her face as she said, "Welcome to Training Ground 44 everyone, as some of us like to call it, the Forest of Death. Filled with all sorts of beasties that will eat you whole if you give them the chance." With this, many of the genins, save for some, felt a bit worried. However, the ones least affected were in fact Team 7. They had already been face to face with the infamous nine-tailed fox. When you met with one of the most dangerous beasts to walk the planet, things like this didn't really scare much. Naruto even said the Forest of Death? "I'm not scared." The Kyuubi commented, "That's because you have to deal with me and that pink flesh bag that hits hard enough. I swear she probably could go toe-to-toe in a fist fight with my previous Jinchuriki." "Yeah, I can see that." Minato added to the Kyuubi's comment. Anko decided to take this as a challenge, so she in high speed shot a kunai at the boy, though he didn't even budge since he could tell where it was headed. The kunai went by his cheek, leaving a small cut, though he knew that it would heal before long. However, he wasn't ready for what happened next. Anko shined behind him and licked where the cut was, freaking him out a little. The Kyuubi was laughing, and Minato was also a little surprised at what she did. "You know, it's the kids like you who think they can do just about anything, that end up getting caught off guard, and spill all that rich, red, lovely, luscious blood," Anko said in his ear. All the genin were a little disturbed save for Gaara, who didn't really give a crap, and Kiba, who saw it as teasing and thought Naruto was a lucky bastard. Though of course, he probably would have pissed his pants if he was in Naruto's situation. Then one of the other genins, a woman with a large straw hat, picked up the thrown kunai with her tongue and went to the proctor as she said, "I believe this is yours?" Anko gave her a quick "oh yeah, thanks," as she took the kunai and then shined back to the original spot she was in. She then collected herself from her little stunt and went on to explain the next part of the exam. The teams had two objectives: to retrieve a set of Earth and Heaven scrolls, one which would be given to them at the start, from opposing teams, and the second was to reach the tower in the middle of the training grounds. Also, they were not to open the scrolls until they reached the inside of the tower. Just as it seemed all the rules had been explained, she then added some extra rules. "Lastly, as we do have a team of 4 here, they will be carrying a man scroll. As a result, they need that scroll as well as a set of Heaven and Earth scrolls. Plus, if they are unable to keep the man scroll, they will need 2 sets of scrolls in order to pass. Lastly, this is for the rest of you, the man scroll can be substituted for either of the Heaven or Earth scrolls." This made Sasuke smirk a bit at the idea of a challenge. Haku shrugged since it was expected the proctor would make it harder for the team with a number advantage. Sakura was worried since now they had a giant target on their backs. As for Naruto, he sweated a few bullets, both from the additional rules and something else. "Kyuubi, did you smell that?" Yes, I did," the Kyuubi replied. "Dad, is that who I think it is?" Minato said in a serious tone. "More than likely. I'd recommend staying away from them if you can. I'm really starting to think my luck is crap," Naruto mentally grumbled. It was a bit later at the gate. Naruto had his teammates gather around quickly so they could be warned about both Kabuto and the woman who wreaked a high hell of snakes. All of them were of a general consensus on 3 things. 1. They had to give the blonde a bit more credit since even before he was a genin he beat up a Chunin. 2. Kabuto was likely the type of guy to lie through his teeth. Heck, Sasuke even let himself look a bit worried for a moment about what info the spy could have before he put back on his normal stoic face. Haku noticed it, but decided not to say anything about it for the time being. And 3. If they saw the straw hat wearing kunoichi, to get the fuck out of Dodge. If it was who the ex-Hokage thought it was, there was little chance of them getting out unscathed. However, they didn't have much more time before the bell rung, so they decided to adopt a strategy of finding the 2 scrolls, get to the tower, and avoid the one ninja at all costs. Heck, they also made a password based off a poem in case of transformations or illusions. Of course though, Naruto couldn't remember it for the life of him. After that, the bell then sounded and the group then made a beeline into the woods. Their formation was Sasuke in front, checking in front of them every now and then with Sharingan since he could see Chakra, Sakura and Haku in the middle so that they could support the front or rear, and Naruto in the rear, since with his senses it wouldn't be easy to catch him off guard. As they ran along the trees, Naruto yelled "Got one!" as he summoned a shadow clone that went back to the area behind them. The rest of the team jumped down onto the ground as they waited for the clone to pull their pursuer out into the open. It was then the pursuer, a nin from Amagekyo that wore white and a sort of gas mask, slammed down onto the ground, courtesy of the clone that Naruto summoned earlier. They had a feeling someone would follow them, so they simply set up a way to get things done and over with quickly. The rain nin got himself out of the ground, only to have his eyes widen as he was now in front of the group he was pursuing. He should have known better than to go scout on his own, but the idea of the man's scroll had made him a bit greedy. "So are you going to hand over the scroll you have, or will we have to take it?" Sasuke said with a smirk. The nin jumped back as he started making hand signs as he said, "You're right, you brats. I'll be taking that scroll from you." But just as he was about to finish his jutsu, he was punched in the gut by Naruto. Normally he would have done a bit of how awesome he was and all that, but with what could be the snake sanding around, Naruto decided there was no time for the usual theatrics, thus, "Sorry, no time. Sakura, check him for the scroll." Sakura nodded as she checked the man's pockets and pouches. In one she found a scroll of earth. Sasuke nodded as he said, "Alright then, that's one. Now let's." But before they could continue, a strong gust of wind hit the group. While a majority of the group managed to stick to the ground, Naruto, who was the wind's direct target, was sent flying. Of course, as he flew, he let out FFEU. "Naruto!" Haku yelled as she saw him fly away and out of his vision. The wind then died down. The group was about to go towards where he was. Naruto then came out from some of the brush, a bit disheveled, but he looked fine. At this point though, Sasuke then asked Naruto, "Naruto, what's the password?" The blonde in front of them then repeated the password perfectly. For a moment, Sakura breathed out a sigh of relief, but then Sasuke added on, "Okay, turn off those seals for a moment." Naruto looked at him a bit confused as he said which seals again. Sasuke, as well as Haku, then sent a barrage of attacks at the blonde, who ended up dodging all but one, which made his eyes widen as he noticed the explosive tag on it. The tag then exploded, through Naruto jumped out of the smoke, revealing rather than Naruto. It was actually the grass kunoichi Naruto warned them about. Well shit. Sasuke couldn't help but swear at the situation. Sakura let sweat drop from her head as she prepared himself. And Haku let out, "Well, this day went from 0 to 100. The team just hoped Naruto was in a better situation than they were right now. With Naruto. UCCK. The boy yelled as he flew, finally being stopped as he hit a tree. He then fell to the forest floor. After a moment he got back up, with only a scratch here or there that healed a few moments later. And while he was annoyed about what just happened, he was worried. Not only was that a powerful wind jutsu from what he could tell, but it also smelled of snakes. But just as he was about to get moving, he could hear and feel something behind him. He slowly turned around to come face to face with a giant snake, its yellow eyes looking at him. Naruto couldn't help but let a few sweat drops crawl down the back of his neck. He was pretty sure it could swallow him whole if it wanted to. The snake then lunged towards him, mouth open, to which Naruto responded with, "Oh hell no! I am not getting eaten today," he said as he used one of his fox fire jutsus, a fox fire version of the fireball jutsu, straight at the snake's face. As the snake saw the fire about to consume it whole, its last thoughts were, "Orochimaru-sama said this was gonna be an easy job. Just eat the kid he sent my way and get a free meal out of it. He's totally weak, yeah right." He didn't say anything about fire that hot, and so the snake screamed its death throes as the fireball burned its face to a crisp. Naruto with heavy breathing proceeded to calm himself down. Meanwhile he could hear the Kyuubi laughing its ass off. "Oh my Kami, that was priceless. The way your face looked as you panicked from that snake summon, priceless. Hey! It caught me off guard, okay? Also snake summon?" Naruto said to the fox, pretty sure no one else was nearby. "Yeah, and you know what that means," the Kyuubi replied. "We should get back quickly." That wind jutsu was probably Orochimaru's. Minato spoke in a serious tone. Naruto nodded, but just as he was about to get moving, he heard a girl scream a bit away from him in the other direction. "Ugh, damn my hero complex." He mentally yelled at himself before he decided to go towards the scream. He came across a redhead girl with glasses and her two teammates, well dead teammates, and a large, very hungry-looking tiger. He guessed that they must have gotten ambushed by the animal, and as a result her two teammates got killed. And likely she would be next. As the animal approached her, ready to pounce, she closed her eyes in her fear. However, Naruto quickly jumped in and took the tiger out with a dropkick to the back of its head, taking it out. The girl, who realized she wasn't dead yet, opened her eyes to see the tiger, likely dead since blood was dripping out of its mouth, with a blonde youth standing on top of it. "You alright?" he said with a bit of a rushed tone. "I am fine, thanks," she replied. "Well good, anyhow I gotta go. Teammates to save and all that, bye," he replied as he jumped up to one of the nearby trees. The redhead then yelled in annoyance, "Hey! Don't leave me here! At least tell me your name, jackass." Naruto decided to humor her as he turned his eyes towards her, and said, "Naruto Uzumaki. Future Hokage. Anyhow bye." He then started to shun across the trees, vanishing from the redhead's sight. Meanwhile, the redhead couldn't help but say, "Wait, he's also an Uzumaki? That lying motherfucker. Also, why did his chakra feel weird? Bah, doesn't matter right now. That prick Orochimaru told me I didn't have any living relatives, and look who popped up." She huffed in annoyance before she looked at her dead teammates, before she sighed, "Well, my teammates are dead, my boss lied about not having any living relatives, and now I'm stuck in a forest filled with a bunch of monsters, Kami dammit. Forest of Death, Konohagakure, Land of Fire, with Sasuke, Sakura, and Haku." While Naruto was dealt with the giant snake and more, the three that didn't get blown away had their own snake problem. "Kukuku, that was quite clever. You had a backup to the password you were talking about earlier. I don't know what seals you were talking about, but I'll have to figure that out later." The kunoichi spoke. He looked at the group before he noted, "So, we have a civilian brat, a girl with an ice genkai that will probably be quite interesting to experiment on, and of course, Sasuke Uchiha, last of the Uchiha besides your brother, but I'd say so far, I'm preferring you over him." "Oh yes indeed." He then licked his lips a bit. Sasuke didn't know whether to be annoyed that he was being compared to his brother, or grossed out that the kunoichi who was possibly Orochimaru was licking their lips while they looked at him. Sasuke couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Haku was also a bit grossed out, but she was also a bit afraid. She was sure that this person was leagues above her master, making it more likely it was Orochimaru. And from what she knew, Orochimaru was not kidding when he said he would find it interesting. As for Sakura, while she was shaking a bit from fear, but as she saw how Sasuke was quite uncomfortable, she ended up stepping up. If Kakashi or Guy were there, they would be quite proud. Who are you? You can't possibly have us believe you're just a genin. Not with that amount of chakra you're letting off. She yelled at him, which also gave their comrades a bit of morale. The snake snickered. Seems like you at least have a bit of spirit, and decent observation too. I suppose I can humor you. I go by Orochimaru. Now let's begin, shall we? In response to that, Sasuke activated his Sharingan, Haku started building up chakra, and Sakura got into a combat stance. The Sannin then dashed in front of them in moments, but with Sasuke's Sharingan, which had reached the 3-tomo stage during their month of training, intercepted the snake, blocking a punch that was meant for Sakura. Oh, quite impressive reaction speed, Sasuke-kun. Should be expected of an Uchiha, of course. Sheesh. This guy hits hard. But not as hard as Sakura. Sasuke thought with a grin on his face. Orochimaru noticed this and looked above to see Sakura coming from above with a downwards kick. And while he dodged it by stepping backwards, he didn't move far enough, as when her foot hit the ground, it caused the nearby terrain to collapse, knocking Orochimaru off balance. TCH. He let out in annoyance. He hadn't expected the pinkette to have that much power. Seemed like things had changed from the information Kabuto had originally gathered on the team. Just as Sakura was about to follow up with a punch at the Sannin, Orochimaru jumped in the air. He knew that he probably didn't want to get hit with those punches. He could already tell that the girl was like a mini Tsunade. And he knew how hard his ex-teammate could hit. However, it wasn't over yet for him. Ice style, icicle barrage! Haku yelled as she summoned a large amount of ice saban to her side, which she then launched at the Sannin. Said Sannin quickly did a set of hand signs before he silently cast his own jutsu, in which a large amount of snakes came out of his right sleeve. The two attacks then collided with each other, until Orochimaru ran out of the snakes he used for that jutsu, and Haku ran out of ice saban. However, he then felt a spike of chakra coming from behind him. He turned his head to see a large fireball was flying towards him. If one paid attention, you could see a grin on his face. The fireball then collided with the Sannin, resulting in an explosion. However, the team was certain the Sannin wasn't down just yet. They could all feel his malevolence in the air, so they stayed sharp, observant of their surroundings. Wherever Orochimaru was, the group could hear him clapping as he said, quite splendid indeed. I would have liked it better if you tried to fight me on your own, but you and your little friends aren't half bad, but I think it's time I stop playing around. Sasuke caught the Sannin's location and tried to shout towards Haku, but the Sannin erupted out of the ground below her, punching her in the gut before he then summoned a large snake to ram at her. She managed to catch herself in the air though and summoned a set of ice mirrors to dodge the snake that was charging at her. She then landed on top of the snake and set off another jutsu, ice style, hand of winter. She then put her hands on the snake, which in turn caused the part she touched to flash freeze and then spread further along. In fact, due to the biology of snakes, the attack was quite effective. Orochimaru couldn't help but now consider the ice brat an annoyance. With her around she could actually counter most of his snake-style jutsu, but then again, he was also a Sannin for a reason. It was also noted that Orochimaru no longer had his disguise as it had been burned away by Sasuke's great fireball jutsu, revealing his long black hair, pale white skin, his little outfit that went with a purple rope around his waist, and his intimidating, snake-like eyes. As he was dodging Sakura's attacks, much to her annoyance, he then made the tiger hand seal. As he did so, Haku could hear the sound of a fuse. She then quickly attempted to make an ice wall before the snake she had flash frozen previously exploded. Haku! Sakura yelled to her, however the Sannin took advantage of this as he quickly punched the pinkette in the gut, causing her to cough up blood before he then set off a signless wind-type jutsu to send her flying towards one of the surrounding trees. Just as he did so, however, Orochimaru noticed Sasuke was no longer where he was previously, and turned around to find the boy right behind him. With a kunai that had electrical sparks on it, Sasuke then swiped at the Sannin, causing a large gash to appear on Orochimaru's back, and also suffer an amount of lightning damage. With this, Sasuke was sure he would be stunned long enough to deal the finishing blow. However, Orochimaru opened his mouth wide, and in the group's disgust, a second Orochimaru came out of his mouth, holding a blade that had a wooden handle of sorts. He then disarmed the boy with a single swipe before he then kicked Sasuke up towards one of the trees. As his back hit the bark, Sasuke was pretty sure a few ribs were cracked from that kick. As he fell down, he landed on one of the larger branches. He managed to get himself back up with will alone, but knew it was likely that they wouldn't be able to keep this up for long. Yes. You'll definitely be the perfect host, kukukukuku. He spoke with a joyous, yet creepy as all hell smile on his face. Orochimaru then jumped up to where Sasuke was and went to attack him with a barrage of taijutsu ranging from jabs, kicks, and so forth, all of which had snake-like movements to them. Sasuke was barely hanging on, managing to make successful blocks due to his Sharingan. However, he could feel the pain from the Sannin's attacks slowly impairing his movements. Fortunately, his teammates had enough time to recover and made their move as Haku launched an ice dragon at the Sannin. Of course though, Orochimaru managed to dodge it in time, now standing on the bottom of the tree branch as the ice dragon passed by above, only for Sakura to jump up towards him while unleashing a familiar spinning kick. "Leave Hurricane!" she yelled as she made her attack. However, the Sannin knew the attack well enough that he simply contorted his upper body backwards with impossible flexibility. "Come!" Sakura yelled, only to once again be sent flying into the dirt as the Sannin grabbed her leg and then threw her downwards. Haku rushed to catch her, and as a result, ended up mitigating some of the damage. However, Haku felt their chances starting to dwindle. She was low on chakra after the use of several of her ice-style jutsus, plus she had taken a decent amount of damage from the set of explosion, the outer part of her clothes in tatters. And in the case of Sasuke and Sakura, while they probably still had a good amount of chakra, had taken heavy hits from the Sannin as well. From what Orochimaru could tell though, the two on the ground were unlikely to move, so he decided to focus back on his main objective. He then flipped back onto the top of the branch, only to realize as he did so he got caught in a large amount of ninja wire. He didn't even see it since it had been camouflaged. The boy himself had a bit of the wire connecting to his mouth. "Seems you've been busy, Sasuke-kun," he praised the young Uchiha. However, Sasuke was having none of it as he just said, "And how about you, burn?" Before he went through a few hand signs before he let out his jutsu, fire style, dragon flame jutsu. The wire in his mouth then caught alight, a stream of fire running down it, as well as the other wires, and straight at Orochimaru, catching the Sannin ablaze. Of course though, the Sannin made a substitution last second and then with a punch to the gut, sent him back to the ground next to his friends. "Sasuke!" his teammates yelled. The Sannin then jumped down and landed across from them with an amused smile on his face. He was quite pleased with how well Sasuke was putting up a fight. But he had things to do, so he decided it was time to wrap things up. "Now then, I suppose I should mark you first, Sasuke-kun, and maybe the ice brat as well, though I'm killing the pink brat," he said as he then formed a set of hand signs. Sasuke, Sakura, and Haku tried to get on guard, only to be caught by surprise as Orochimaru's neck then stretched like a snake before he then bit the boy right around his nape, causing him to cry out in pain. As Orochimaru did so, however, he had a slight look of surprise on his face, as he noticed two things in particular. He swore he could see a set of bandages around Sasuke's chest, as well as the fact his scream was a bit high-pitched, which the others ignored due to how their teammate just got hurt badly. As he let go, causing Sasuke to fall to the ground unconscious, he let out, "Well, what are the odds? I suppose I shouldn't be surprised, but it doesn't matter in the end, I suppose I'll just..." Before he could continue, he was suddenly hit by a high-speed dropkick by none other than everyone's favorite blonde ninja. "Naruto!" Sakura and Haku said at the same time. They were both glad he was okay and that the odds could be evened up a bit with him here. Naruto looked at them with a smirk on his face before he noticed Sasuke was down on the ground. "Sakura-chan, take care of Sasuke. Whatever that pedo over there did, Sasuke probably needs medical attention for it," Naruto said to her. Sakura nodded. Rather than acting like the fangirl she had been previously, she acted as a medic as she quickly grabbed Sasuke and pulled them out of the way. Haku meanwhile took one of the soldier pills from her pockets, and ate it so that she could support Naruto once her chakra recovered. Meanwhile Orochimaru looked at the boy as he said, "So you're the Kyuubi brat. I'll admit, that wasn't a bad kick, but you're going to have to do better than that to defeat me." Naruto gave the man a glare, and said, "What did you do to Sasuke?" Orochimaru grinned as he said, "I gave Sasuke a present." However, his face turned into a frown as he added, though it came with a surprise. Naruto looked a bit puzzled by the last remark but shook his head. He then smashed his fists together, as he said, "Well, I'm still kicking your ass." Orochimaru laughed as he said, "And how are you going to do that, little dead last?" What happened next made him regret that remark. The voice came from behind him as in less than a moment, Naruto disappeared in a flash of yellow and reappeared right behind the Sannin. Orochimaru tried to yell, only to be punched quite hard in the face, sending him skidding across the forest floor. As Orochimaru collected himself, he thought, was that Haration? This may pose more of a problem than I thought. The blonde then came at him again, only this time, his fists were cloaked in flame. Orochimaru could tell right away those flames were not normal and proceeded to dodge, feeling the heat from the attacks as each one missed him by inches. Orochimaru then tried to strike him with the Kusanagi blade, only to get quite pissed as right as the blade was about to cut him on his shoulder, Naruto launched a slightly ironic jutsu. Wind style, great breakthrough. Orochimaru then was sent flying back into a tree, and Naruto couldn't help but let a smirk appear on his face as he said, "Yeah, take that, snake bastard." He was quite pleased to get a bit of revenge from what happened to him earlier. "Okay, brat, you are really starting to annoy me." Orochimaru snarled as he sent a barrage of snakes at Naruto, which he dodged, only to have his leg caught by Orochimaru's other hand that had been extended. The snake Sannin then swung the boy into a nearby tree before retracting his hand and dragged Naruto along with it. Orochimaru then held the boy up by his leg, causing the boy's shirt to go towards his head just enough for his belly and seal to be exposed. Orochimaru then had a set of snakes constrict the boy's arms enough so that he wouldn't be able to hit him. Orochimaru sneered as he spoke, "I don't know how you managed to get this strong, fox brat, but it doesn't matter. Now just stay still for a moment." Orochimaru then started sending chakra to his other hand, causing purple chakra to appear on his fingertips. In response, both Naruto and Minato from within the seal realized just what the Sannin was planning. "Shit! 5-pronged seal, you can't let him use that. We don't know what will happen," Minato yelled. The seal had already been somewhat screwed up, they didn't need or want it to get worse. "Brat, if there's any time to pull something out of your ass, now is the time," the Kyuubi yelled at Naruto. Naruto had a light bulb go off in his head as right before Orochimaru could swing his arm at him, he made a single-handed hand seal and yelled "Kai." Just as he did so, Orochimaru was then sent flying away from Naruto. He skidded on the ground, the 5-pronged seal technique in his hand no longer active as he tried to compute what just happened. "What the heck? I was sure the boy was restrained. And I'm confident he doesn't have any one-hand sign jutsu he can use with one hand," he thought. However, what he saw next explained it to him, as well as caught his interest. The boy in front of him now had a pair of fox ears, similar to the Kyuubi's, and an orange and black fox tail. He then released the boy must have hit him with the tail the second the smoke from his transformation occurred to twist his body so that it would hit. And he could tell it wasn't fake, it was certainly real. Meanwhile, Minato sighed that was close, and I guess he did pull something out of his ass. The Kyuubi simply couldn't decide whether to laugh at the irony of it, or get pissed since the first thing Naruto associated with the phrase with the limb connected to Naruto's tailbone. It decided to simply huff at Minato's comment. Orochimaru took in this form as he then said, "How interesting. I don't know how, but you've somehow taken in some of the Kyuubi's form and abilities." "Yes, very interesting. Perhaps that explains what that fire was." Kukukukuku. Naruto and Minato felt a little uneasy. They were wondering just for what reason the Sannin was laughing like that. The Kyuubi even said, "Why do I have a bad feeling about what he's going to say next?" Orochimaru then in a look of ecstasy said, "I've never heard of a Jinchuriki that's actually become part of the beast they contain. I think I'll make sure to have you captured alive so that I can study that body of yours. Every inch of it. And with how young you are, I'm certain I will have plenty of time to do so." The entire group, minus the unconscious Sasuke, were both scared and grossed out by what he just said, as while it was scary considering that face he made could probably kill puppies, what he said could be taken in another way. As such, the entire group was in a shocked silence. The Kyuubi then said, "As much as I despise the pervert of the Sannin as the strongest of the tailed beasts, I'd take him any day over this pedophile who wants to mess with my container." Naruto collected himself back together, ignorant of the Kyuubi's near mess up, before he looked at the Sannin as he tried to come up with a plan since he definitely did not want to be Orochimaru's new test subject and possibly boy toy. He saw something in the corner of his eye, and came up with what might help them win this question. "Are you a pedophile?" The snake Sannin paused for a moment before he replied, "No, I simply take no interest in sexual interactions. What are you, imply?" Before he could finish, Naruto interrupted him with, "Do you experiment on kids more than adults? That and how many people work for you directly are young? Also, how many are boys?" On the inside, Naruto was slamming his head against a mental wall about how dumb the plan was. Kyuubi was laughing its ass off, and Minato felt pride at the amount of balls his son was showing with this. Haku, meanwhile, as she sneaked around the Sannin, was thinking the same as Minato about Naruto. And if they survived this, she swore to kiss the blonde afterwards. She liked him enough as it was due to what happened in Wave as well as the last month, but the fact he was buying her time by literally insulting one of the strongest living shinobi, she was damn sure he was worth it. Sakura had her mouth wide open, shocked that Naruto had the gall to insult the Sannin, a S-rank missing nin, the one who had been kicking their asses, in such a manner. It was beyond stupid, insane even in her thoughts. The Sannin was about to speak before he realized the boy wasn't wrong. A lot of his elites were decently young, especially when he had originally found them. Even more so, the majority of them were male, save for Taiya and Guren. Heck, his right hand was barely out of his teens at this point. And lastly, a majority of the bodies he had taken over were young men. Wait, am I a pedophile? Orochimaru thought as he put his hand under his chin in a pondering pose. At this point, he was distracted long enough for Haku to use the opportunity to ambush him. Ice style, frozen waterfall flow. Haku then summoned a ball of water that then fired like a horizontal waterfall at the Sannin. Orochimaru barely managed to look around and say before the attack hit him, and he found himself inside the water. "That's distracting," he said right before the water turned to ice, freezing the Sannin in a block of it. However, the Sannin quickly broke out of it with his strength, as he said, "And that's annoyingly distracting." But he couldn't help but feel like he forgot something only to notice the large amount of chakra behind him. He turned to see the boy with one of his left fists pulled back, and that orange flames were spewing from it all over the place. And what terrified the Sannin was that the flames around the fist were not only loaded with chakra, but took the form of the Kyuubi's head. He barely had a moment before Naruto yelled out his jutsu, Fox Fire style, Burning Maw. Naruto punched the air as the flame Kyuubi head launched from his fist, enlarging itself to the size of one of Orochimaru's snake summons, its mouth wide open as it flew towards him. Orochimaru knew he didn't have enough time to summon his Rashomon gates, and simply did one thing. "Oh my Kami," he said as he raised his hands to block the attack, not that it would do much. His moment of fear even made him forget he could have easily used a seal-less substitution. Inside the seal, Kyuubi couldn't help but snicker nom nom. As the maw hit Orochimaru, it exploded forwards, and sent the pedo flying quite far away, with a large amount of his body now covered in second-degree burns, and his hands with third-degree burns. As the dust settled, the group could now see, much to their surprise, that Naruto had blasted about half a mile of the trees into ash. The ground under it was now blackened, and the Sannin was now nowhere to be seen. Haku was quite surprised by the power, but was happy to know that Naruto had waited long enough for her to get out of the way before he sent the attack at Orochimaru. Sakura had the bottom her mouth on the forest floor, shocked that Naruto had that much power, though it only lasted a second. Ow. I hate how it does this every time. He yelped as he ran in circles, holding up his left arm that was now covered in second-degree burns. Sakura sighed as she realized while he had gotten stronger still Naruto. Though she did decide perhaps she should try to be a bit kinder with him. He basically saved their asses plus sent a Sannin flying, so she wouldn't argue. Haku merely giggled a little before she went over to check on the boy. The girls then noticed that the arm started smoking a little as the burns were healed over. Sakura couldn't help but be curious due to her understanding of anatomy and biology. "Naruto, what was that?" Sakura asked. Naruto grinned as he told them, "Oh, that was one of the new jutsu I had been working on with Dad and Kyuubi. Took forever to get it that good. Still sucks that I burn my arm and spend a lot of chakra every time I use it though." Sakura then screeched, "Not that baka. I meant how is your arm all healed now? It should take days for something like that to heal." Naruto said, "Oh, I heal fast, always have." Within the seal the Kyuubi gloated, "You can thank me for that flesh bag. It's one of the abilities my Jinchuriki gain." Naruto paused for a moment at that before he spoke. "Oh, that was you, Kyuubi? Thanks. You saved my bacon then a lot of times." Sakura and Haku then shrugged. They guessed it was a Jinchuriki thing. Inside the seal, the Kyuubi looked at Minato with a shit-eating grin as it looked at Minato. "Ha! 5-4. Eat that flesh bag." Minato nodded before he shot back. "And what did you nearly call yourself earlier?" The Kyuubi winced back before it said, "Damn it, 5-5. But Minato wasn't done. "And also, unlike you, I wasn't really affected by Guy and Lee's genjutsu as much as you were earlier. So 6-5. Naruto could hear the Kyuubi groaning in defeat, and swearing it would get its lead back, but Naruto focused on other matters. "Hey, how's team?" he said. Sakura then spoke. "Oh right, I helped in stabilizing him a bit, but I'm going to have to check for internal damage next. He probably broke a few ribs earlier, and I can't help in healing that through his clothing." Naruto deadpanned for a moment before commenting, "You just want to see team shirtless, don't you?" Sakura smirked as she said, "I am a medic, and now I have an excuse. Now let me work, Naruto." Naruto couldn't help but ask, "Wait, did you not call me baka?" Sakura blushed a little as she said, "Oh, shut up." Haku found their conversation amusing as it was, and in the back of her mind noted to later kiss the blonde boy since that's what she swore she would do. But then she remembered one of the most amusing things about her raven-haired teammate, and watched what happened next with grin clearly on her face. Just as Sakura carefully took off Sasuke's shirt so that she could check for the damage, she and Naruto saw one thing in particular, that there was a set of bandages on his chest, and under them a set of breasts. It took them a moment of silence and blinking to process that their teammate wasn't a he but a she. And so, both Blonde and Pinkette yelled in unison, "Eheed." Meanwhile, Haku was laughing, with a snort or two coming out even. "Oh, that was so worth the wait." Haku let out before she laughed even more. Meanwhile in the seal the Kyuubi was doing the exact same thing as Haku was, though Minato sighed as something else was on his mind. Orochimaru would be back eventually. But as to whether he would kill Naruto or not, it was uncertain. Forest of Death, Konohagakure, Land of Fire. The group of Umbu, Anko, and the third Hokage, who had entered the training ground, and strangely enough, the redhead Naruto had saved earlier, were all still a bit flabbergasted at what they just saw. They were following the lead Naruto left them on his paper for the first exam, and also grabbed Anko, who was furious with herself for not realizing the ninja that could extend their tongue was none other than her estranged master. She would have been banging her head against something if she had the time to do so. As for the redhead, who named herself as Karen Uzumaki, much to the surprise of the Konoha Nin, had been picked up by them earlier. They happened to come across her on their way towards where Sensory Ninja had picked up Orochimaru's chakra. She in fact noticed them as they were passing by, and when they realized both her teammates were dead, they decided to help her out, though Hiruzen straight up ordered it when she told them her name and the fact she worked for, well now used to work for, the Snake Sannin, who happened to lie to her about any surviving family members. He decided the best option here was to put her into protective custody, have Inochi confirm the details and possibly ask her to give them a bit of info with confirmation. She accepted the conditions, but of course laid a condition or two. The main one being that she wanted to know more about the person who could be her cousin, and secondly more about her clan. Hiruzen accepted this, as he thought it would be a nice way to give his grandson of sorts a bit of connection to his roots. Plus she wasn't originally from the village, much like Haku, she wouldn't have the absurd hatred the civilians had for him. It was an absolute win, though he would have to hear the whining of the civilian council and demands from the crazed war hawk. But then again, he managed to blow them off last time with Haku. He could probably do it again. However, at the moment, they were currently in the trees a bit away from where a fight just took place. The one where Team 7 fought the snake Sannin. They happened to get there right when Naruto asked Orochimaru one of the most absurd questions he could. Most of the ninja were trying desperately hard to not laugh, especially when it seemed like Orochimaru had started to ponder on the thought. However, Hiruzen simply grinned as while yes, it was funny, it was actually a strategy. A dumb one, but one that worked splendidly, though none of them were ready for when Naruto had launched his powerful jutsu and sent Orochimaru flying. They had witnessed of all things, a genin sending a Sannin flying. Of course some of them rationalized it. They noted that Naruto, while a genin, was the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, though implicitly since it was forbidden to talk about it. Of course, Karen caught on to what they were talking about. Though half of them nearly lost it again when it was revealed that Sasuke was female. All except for Hiruzen, because now he knew that not only had Kakashi called it, but now he had to let Kurenai burn all of his collection. However, there was also one other important matter. Anko and Karen, I will ask this of you right now. What you saw, you tell no one save for those here. The boy's form, his power, and the one girl hiding her gender. Understood? Hiruzen asked the two. Anko simply gave him a thumbs up as she said no problem. Especially the first one. That was great watching him both insult and kick Orochi team's ass. Karen simply shrugged as she replied sure, I'm fine with that. I get to learn more about my clan that my parents told me about, and I get to spend time with my cousin. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow as he asked, you aren't afraid of him? Well, he was powerful, but his chakra felt warm. Also I've seen crazier things than a guy with fox ears and tail. For example, a guy with 6 arms, one with 2 heads, one who can flip from shut-in to psycho killer in a moment, an annoying bastard who can literally become water, and lastly, this one guy who can pull out his spine and beat people to death with it. All of which either work for Orochimaru, and or are his experiments. Karen answered. All of the Umbu, Anko, and Hiruzen all went silent from that, before they all replied at once. Are you serious? Karen nodded, which made many of them start to think Naruto's kitsune form was not that big of a deal. With Team 7, as the Hokage was working on avoiding info leaks, Team 7 had moved themselves about a 20 or so minutes walk away from the battlefield, setting themselves up in a hollowed-out tree. Of course though, despite healing Sasuke's, or whatever her actual name was since they weren't quite sure, injuries, she still wasn't waking up, and was on occasion wincing in pain while in her unconscious state. Naruto implied it's likely that seal on her neck. Sakura nodded and spoke yeah. From what I saw, it's right where Orochimaru bit her. Haku nodded as she said agreed before a grin appeared on her face. Sakura deadpanned as Haku, and said Haku, it isn't funny. Haku simply giggled as she said but it is. Not only did she trick everyone for years, but all the girls her age ended up fangirling for her boy persona. Sakura simply groaned as it came back to her mind. She had learned that her dream of being with Sasuke was in fact pointless. But then again, thanks to her recent training in the past month, and the hellish teacher that was Might Guy, she started to work on another goal. To be a strong kunoichi like Tsunade, I should really thank Tenten later. At least I still have a goal to strive towards, she thought. Naruto was also a bit baffled by the situation. All this time it turned out his rival was in fact a girl. Naruto couldn't help but wonder if perhaps there was more his teammate was hiding. Also, now that Sasuke's actual gender was revealed, he couldn't help but feel a strange nagging feeling in the back of his head. As if though he forgot something. But in any case, Haku calmed herself down as she got the group to the main point. So, what are we going to do about that seal? The group was silent, contemplating for a moment before Minato spoke up. Naruto, make a clone for me to use. I can examine it. Of course, duh. Seal master, he replied. Before the girls could ask, Naruto summoned a shadow clone and let his father take control of it, though without the transformation jutsu. It wasn't exactly a secure location they were at. The girls got it though when the clone started speaking in a much calmer voice. Excuse me, Sakura. I need to take a closer look at the curse mark here. Sakura nodded, surprised at how Naruto's voice, even if Minato was currently in control, actually sounded kind of cool when he wasn't being a loudmouth. Minato put his hand on the seal as he then probed it with his chakra. He then grimaced as he came to understand the messed up jutsu Orochimaru created. I have to say, I thought Orochimaru couldn't get lower, but now I can say that he's even worse than I thought. The others looked a bit worried. Naruto asked his father how bad. Is she going to die? Minato shook his head and explained his findings. Yes and no. As it could kill her, but from what I can tell she would likely survive. The problem is what that snake put in there. First, he seemed to use the DNA of some sort of Kekai Genkai so that the curse mark can forcibly draw in nature chakra, which in unhealthy amounts, can be quite bad. It can even drive a person insane without proper training. And that isn't even the worst of it. Naruto asked his father what exactly is nature chakra. Minato held up a finger as he replied nature chakra is basically the energy, or chakra, that comes from the surroundings rather than from within. With proper training, it's possible to absorb some of this, and thus gain a boost in both chakra and natural abilities. Though due to how nature chakra is hard to control, absorbing too much at once can lead to death. I know this since I have such training, and before you ask Naruto, we'll get to that later. The team nodded at the additional info, and then Sakura asked, so then, what's worse? Minato frowned and spoke. Orochimaru sealed a part of his soul in there for multiple reasons. First, to control the influx of nature chakra. Second, he can forcibly influence the bearer's mind from within, turning them on their friends and possibly into his loyal subjects. The third part, though, it seems that it's possible for Orochimaru to use it to forcibly take over the bearer's body. He likely put it on Sasuke in order to get the Sharingan. The group paled at the thought, realizing just how much in danger their teammate was. She could go crazy and end up basically being as a meat sack for Orochimaru to take over. What do we do, Dad? We don't want her to die, Naruto said with a bit of panic. However, Minato chuckled a bit. Don't worry, Naruto. What's lesson number 21? Naruto pondered a bit and answered, you don't fuck up. Minato sighed, no, that's lesson 2. Lesson 21 is anything is possible with Fuinjutsu. Wait, so does that mean? Naruto beamed at his father with a big smile. Yes, but I won't be able to do this alone here, Minato said to them. Sakura asked, what do you mean, Lord Fourth? Minato then explained his plan. Essentially, what we need to do is remove Orochimaru's soul from the seal, destroy it if possible. If we remove it, I should be able to get rid of the rest of the curse mark. In order to do that, I'll need to have you three enter Sasuke's mindscape here. Though due to what's going on with her right now, you'll have to navigate through her memories until you can find Orochimaru. He's likely using her darkest memory in hopes of influencing her. Haku noticed something as she asked, so basically, we're doing something similar to the Yamanakas? I thought their mind-walking was a clan jutsu? Sakura commented, ugh, I hate the idea of using something like Inopig's jutsu, and I can't even gloat about doing it first since Sasuke isn't actually a guy. Minato shrugged at Sakura's reaction before he said, well, it is based off the Yamanaka's jutsu. It's just I was recently able to reverse engineer it due to spending time in Naruto's own mindscape. The group nodded as they accepted the sort of pseudo-mission. Naruto then yelled, alright. What are we waiting for? Minato then told them, alright, I need you all to hold on to a part of me. And just so you know, you won't be able to directly interact with any memories save for whatever Orochimaru is trying to abuse, alright? The Genins nodded as they all grabbed onto one of Minato's, still looking like Naruto, by the way, shoulders. He then made a seal on his hand with chakra alone, and the moment said hand came into contact with the curse mark, the world went black for the Genins as their minds connected to Sasuke's. Inside Sasuke's mindscape, as their eyes opened, the group found themselves somewhere quite familiar. It was the Ninja Academy, and in fact, in the classroom they had used for several years even. What the heck, why are we here? Naruto looked around a bit confused. Sakura replied to him, Naruto, we're in Sasuke's mind, remember? Perhaps this is his memory of the place. Suddenly a voice came from besides them, and it was feminine. Indeed, sigh, that blonde bastard fucking owes me for this one. The group looked to the side of them to see a woman they didn't recognize standing next to them. She had long, wild red hair and wore a black kimono. What they did recognize though was the red eyes with slits, the fox ears, and the 9 tails that came out her back. Sakura ended up asking what was on everyone's mind. Kyuubi? She simply smirked as she replied, yes, it is I, the almighty Kyuubi. Naruto looked a bit confused as he then said, wait, aren't you male? The Kyuubi sighed, nope. I just think acting as a male has a better intimidation factor. Plus most of you annoying flesh bags end up going on and on about the whole oh she's a girl, she's totally weak bullshit. Also, before Pinky here started taking her training seriously, she was a prime example of that. Hey, Haku then asked, so why are you showing us this now? Well, Minato thought it might be a good idea for me to help you due to one of my particular abilities Naruto doesn't have access to yet, the ability to sense negative emotions. Plus since this is a mental projection of myself, I can't use that voice change I normally do. And lastly, do you really think I could fit in this dump of an academy in my actual size? The Kyuubi explained to them. The group nodded before Sakura yelled, hey. This place isn't a dump, we learned a lot here. The Kyuubi then gave her a short glare before she said, oh? You mean the same place where teachers would remove the blonde brat here from class for no reason before starting an important lesson, doing nothing as older brats beat him into the dirt, never replacing his textbooks that had been stolen, or even how half the time the teachers would fail him on tests even if he had the right answers. Only real plus sides to this shithole was that one flesh bag Irika actually treated him fairly, as well as that pineapple head, the chubby one, and that one pale eyes that was in the back. Sasuke too if you think about it. Oh, and the pranks, those were fun to watch. The two girls looked shocked as they looked at Naruto. Sakura knew that the blonde was the dead last back in the academy, but she never realized until the Kyuubi said it that a majority of the teachers and some of the other students had despised the boy and constantly harassed him. She also put together it was likely due to how the Kyuubi was sealed inside of him, and thus the irrational hatred of the civilians and not as bright shinobi became aimed at him. Haku was inwardly furious that people would treat him in such a manner. He had a kind soul, yet had to deal with such treatment? I am sorry Naruto, I didn't know. Sakura apologized. Sakura guessed that was probably part of the reason why the boy always gravitated towards her. She didn't treat him like a monster at least, but she still couldn't help but feel bad. Naruto shrugged as he said, it's okay Sakura. At least I got out of that place. And besides, they call me dead last, then I'll be the underdog. Haku put a hand on his shoulder, as she added, we're here if you need us. Naruto-kun also want to prank those stupid teachers after the exams are over? Naruto grinned as he and Haku then shook their hands. While Sakura wanted to feel some pity for their targets, she also thought they would be getting what they deserved. Their moment was interrupted as the door to the classroom opened, revealing Sasuke in his brand new headband as she walked over towards her spot near the window and sat down, looking outside. What happened next confused the group. Today's the day for team assignments. I hope I get a good team without one of the fangirls. I still find it confusing as to why when I act like an asshole they gravitate towards me. As the feminine voice spoke, the Kyuubi explained, we're in the crossdresser's mind, idiots. What you're hearing are her thoughts when the event happened. Naruto then laughed and said, really? Oh my Kami, that hilarious. She must have been acting like an ass to try and avoid people, but look what happened. That's priceless. Sakura sighed, that's why she acted so distant. I just thought she was a troubled bad boy that needed love to fill his suffering soul. Haku shrugged as she replied to the pinkette, well, you and probably all of her other fangirls. The scene then played out as the many other graduates entered the room, including Naruto. Wait. I thought Naruto-kun failed. Doesn't matter. It's good that he passed. Maybe he'll be on my team. I know he can be stronger, I'll need it when I confront Nissan. Wait, who's Nissan? Naruto questioned with a tilt of his head. Sakura then answered, I think if I remember right, her older brother was the one who massacred her clan. Naruto's eyes widened as he yelled, wait a sec? So she wasn't kidding when she said she wanted to kill someone. Guess that's one reason why she distanced herself as well as trying to keep her gender a secret. Haku said. As things played out as before, they got to the point where Naruto and Sasuke ended up in a kiss. Naruto couldn't help but note, well, at least now that I know Sasuke is a chick, it's not as bad now. Sakura couldn't help but nod to that. Meanwhile Haku was on the floor laughing, and Kyuubi was laughing as well as she remembered Naruto's own thoughts at the time. Crap. Naruto-kun is kissing me. This probably would raise questions if I look like I like it. Wait, I know. Then the group watched as Sasuke acted like she had just ate poison, which made it seem like she was simply a guy that was suffering from a yaoi moment. Haku couldn't help but say, wow Naruto, I didn't realize you were such a lady killer. Naruto meanwhile had a blush on his face from the embarrassment. He also spoke out loud, wait, she liked that? No wonder I felt weird about it. And it was hilarious. Especially since I knew even back then. The Kyuubi replied between her fits of laughter. She still thought this moment was priceless. Sakura then said, wait, does that mean Sasuke was interested in you, Naruto? This caused Naruto to want to hit his head on the desk. Meanwhile Haku and Kyuubi were laughing at the thought that the little love triangle Team 7 had before Haku joined was even better than expected. It was literally a cycle. Naruto yelled, I didn't realize there was any girls that liked me. But one was right in front of me the whole time. What the heck? Elsewhere in the Forest of Death, Hinata had a quick sneeze as she and her team traveled across the treetops and towards the tower. Kiba asked, you alright Hinata? Hinata replied, I am fine Kiba-kun. Shino commented, maybe someone was talking about you. Hinata in response thought, maybe it's Naruto-kun? That would be nice if he's thinking about me. Back in the mindscape, the Kyuubi collected herself with a few breaths, and said, well, as entertaining as this moment is, we should get moving. We'll need to go deeper in order to find Orochimaru. Sakura replied, right. Just as Naruto was about to reply, Iruka entered the door, and then walked right through Naruto's body. What the fuck? Naruto screamed. The Kyuubi let out a laugh before she reminded him, brat, your father told you before that other than the part of the mindscape we're looking for we aren't able to interact with anything else, remember? Naruto's sweat dropped as he said, oh right, I totally remember that. Said reaction got a giggle out of the other two girls. The group then followed Kyuubi towards the classroom door, and went through it. After stepping through, they realized they were in another place. It looked like the inside of a house. The floors were wooden, the walls painted white, and there were also a few curtains with the Uchiha symbol on them. Oh, I know where we are. This must be Sasuke's house she lived in before that condo she uses now, Sakura said as she observed the surroundings. Haku and Kyuubi both had evil grins on their faces, and asked in unison, and just how do you know that? Sakura chose not to answer their question. With her former dream crushed, she had been starting to realize how much of an idiot she had been. The dieting that kept her from being fit, ignoring others who could have used the help like Naruto did, and worst of all, some of the tendencies she had as a fangirl, including stalking, and even a small shrine in her closet. When we get back from the exams, I'm destroying all evidence of that. These two must never know, Sakura thought. Heck, she was tempted to find a way to go back in time just so she could slap her past self. Before they could continue embarrassing the poor girl, as well as Naruto who was going to ask them to stop, the memory played out. From the stairwell that entered the main living room, a young Sasuke came down the stairs. They presumed that this was probably a bit before the massacre. Morning Tuchan, Ka-chan, a beautiful woman with long, dark blue hair wearing an apron stepped out of the kitchen as she told her daughter good morning Sasuke. Though she also sent a light glare at the man over at the couch for some reason. The man, who had mid-length black hair and an angular face, simply waved at his second child, not seeming to care much. The group reacted to this in different ways. Sakura commented, "Wow, Sasuke's mother is beautiful." Haku added, "And the father, something tells me I wouldn't like him." Well, from what I remember back when I was in my previous host, Mikoto Uchiha was probably one of the very few Uchiha I didn't mind. The father, on the other hand, give it a moment. The Kyuubi replied to the both of them. Naruto, oddly enough, was quiet. He looked like he was trying to remember something. Why does this version of Sasuke look so familiar? The young Sasuke didn't really seem to be bothered much as she went over to the kitchen table where her mother set the young Uchiha's breakfast. As she sat down, she looked over at her mother and asked Ka-san, "Where's Itachi and Ai-san?" Mikoto simply smiled as she said, "Well, he went off on a mission early this morning, so he'll probably be back later." Sasuke simply pouted, which all the members of Team 7 and the Kyuubi found adorable. "He said he was gonna teach me some more shuriken things today. Stupid missions preventing him from being with me, his little SI." At this point though, the man on the couch said, "Brother." Sasuke looked at him and replied, "Boo." But the man cut him off again as he spoke. "I said brother." "Understood?" Mikoto simply sighed as she said, "Fugaku, you don't have to treat her like that, she's your daughter." Fugaku glared at her and replied, "No, he is not. I have 2 sons. I will not have a weak-hearted daughter in my family. Women are weak. Thus Sasuke is my son, not as good as his older brother is, but still my son." At this point the group glared at the man. And the Kyuubi said, "And there it is." Haku commented, "Ugh, sexist bastard." Sakura added on, "He forced his daughter to act as a guy because he thought we're weak? I'm so happy I never met him." Naruto even responded with, "If he thinks girls are weak, he's an idiot. I know well enough how scary an angry woman is. Plus Kyuubi, who literally wrecked the village, is female. It's literally the middle finger to all sexism." Kyuubi replied to him, "Well, at least you know better." Mikoto sighed as she knew this conversation wasn't going anywhere, and Sasuke had her head down in shame. A shame forced on her by her father. "Sometimes I wish I wasn't born a girl. Maybe then Tusan wouldn't force me to act like one and always be so mean to me." After Fugaku left for work, Mikoto simply gave her daughter a hug and told her it's okay. "I know your father is a bit of a jerk, but I'm sure he'll come around eventually when you become a strong and beautiful kunoichi. At least Ka-san believes in me." Sasuke nodded and with a smile said, "Thank you, Ka-san." The woman then handed the girl her backpack and lunch for the day before Sasuke then left the house. Though not without one more thought. Sigh, another day at school acting like a boy. At least I've made a friend or two. At least the mother is nice. Haku commented with a bit of a smile. Naruto said, still annoyed at that prick she calls dad though. "If I knew about this, I would have pranked him to Kingdom Come." Haku, and funny enough Sakura too, replied, "And I would have helped." Naruto ended up doing a double take, and said, "Wait, Sakura, seriously?" Sakura deadpanned as she said, "Naruto, you do realize it's basically his fault Sasuke pretended to be a guy and I ended up as a fangirl to Sasuke, right? So indirectly it's his fault and I want revenge, but that isn't going to happen." The Kyuubi made a sagely nod as she added, yes, among the many other fangirls Sasuke had when acting like a boy. The Kyuubi then walked towards the front door as she spoke, "Alright, let's continue, we aren't too far now." The group then followed the fox woman through the next door. The next place they stepped into was in fact the hallway of the same house, but now it was night instead of day, and they could see the young Sasuke peeping a little through the panel door, which the rest of them did as well. Inside, Fugaku and a black-haired youth that had 2 lines on his face were having a discussion. Sakura noted to the others that must be Itachi, Sasuke's older brother. "Itachi, why did you miss the clan meeting yesterday?" Fugaku said in a stern voice. The boy simply looked at his father as he replied with an equally stern voice, "I had a mission in Umbi yesterday. Thus I could not attend." Fugaku sighed. "Very well. Remember though, you are the lifeline between us and the village. Sure sway too, but you play a far greater role. You must do what is necessary for the clan." Itachi nodded before a small smirk appeared on his face before he said, "Sasuke, go to bed. It's late." Sasuke blushed out of embarrassment and snuck back to her room. Itachi seemed to have a genuine smile on his lips, while his father looked a bit annoyed about how his second child overheard them. The group thought it was a bit of a nice moment, but they couldn't help but ponder on what they were speaking of. However, the Kyuubi motioned for them to move onwards, and entered the door to Sasuke's room. Next they found themselves in a forest clearing, where Sasuke was sitting on a tree trunk. A bit away was Itachi, who was standing still, much like a spring ready to be sprung. What happened next was an amazing display of skill in shuriken jutsu and acrobatics as Itachi jumped up into the air and sent shuriken flying, some even hitting each other, in order to hit the targets set up all over the clearing, including one behind a rock. "Damn, he's awesome. I want to do that." Naruto beamed the man as his eyes were replaced with stars. Sakura noted, "Is it just me, or does good looks seem to run from their mom's side of the family?" "Likely." Haku added to that. Sasuke was also excited about how her brother did that as she went over to him. "That was great, Ni-san. You even hit the target behind the rock." Itachi smiled as he said, well, I'm glad my little display pleased you, Sasuke-chan. Hey, I thought Dad didn't like it when you call me that? Itachi had an amused expression on his face as he replied, and he isn't here now, and we're not in public, are we? Sasuke gave him a bright smile and asked, so when are you going to teach me that? Can we do it right now? Itachi walked a bit closer to her, went down to eye level, and then poked her on the forehead with his finger. He told her sorry, maybe next time, little sister. Sasuke pouted before she drew out her own shuriken as she said, well, watch this. What happened next was a pitiful display, resulting in Sasuke spraining her ankle, to which Itachi sighed and after a bit of first aid, picked her up on his back and headed home. Of course, throughout all this, Naruto, the Kyuubi, and Haku were laughing their asses off, while Sakura simply facepalmed. However, as the siblings left, the Kyuubi told them, alright, let's follow them. The team then followed them back towards their house, and just as they were about to reach it, they were confronted by 3 ninja from the Uchiha clan. Just the looks on their faces made the genin feel a little uneasy. Itachi, we need to speak with you about Shursui Uchiha. Inside Sasuke's mindscape. Itachi, we need to speak with you about Shursui Uchiha. A ninja that had the Uchiha creased on his shoulder asked Itachi. Naruto, Haku, Sakura, and the Kyuubi were watching one of Sasuke's memories play out so that they could find the door to the next memory. At the moment, they were standing to the side as Itachi, with his little sister on his back, was confronted by 3 Uchiha ninja. Well, not that anyone else knew besides Fugaku and Mikoto at that time. Team 7 assumed, based on Fugaku's attitude about it previously. What is it? Has something happened? Itachi replied. Only 2 Uchiha missed last meeting. Why didn't you come? Itachi calmly answered, I was on mission at the time. But I understand, I will be more careful from now on. One of the Uchiha stepped up, and spoke. This is regarding the other who did not make the meeting. Shursui Uchiha. His body was found in the Nakano River this morning. He had left behind a suicide note. We want to ask you about that. Itachi looked downwards, while Sasuke came to terms with what was spoken. As Shursui Anai-san is dead? From suicide? But why? I haven't had the chance to see him recently. It's unfortunate, Itachi replied. The last of the 3 pulled out the note, and gave it to the Uchiha, explaining the brisk of what was written. However, it's possible for a Sharingan user to perfectly mimic Shursui's handwriting and write the note, so we would like you to request the Umbu to help us with the investigation. The first of the 3 Uchiha said. I understand, Itachi replied, a bit of anger in his voice. The 3 started to walk away before his tightened the grip of the note, and put Sasuke down on the ground. Why don't you just come out and say it? That you suspect me? The 3 Uchiha then turned around, and their Sharingan met with his. The fight that proceeded afterwards was quick, and, as noted by Haku, efficient. Itachi had single-handedly disabled the 3 Uchiha. Itachi and one of the downed ninjas seemed to have a heated conversation, before Fugaku showed up. Calm down, Itachi, he ordered with a stern look on his face. Itachi then grabbed a kuni, much to his father's shock, before he tossed it at the Uchiha symbol on the wall. One of the Uchiha got himself off the ground as he said, that's enough. If you keep this going, we'll have to take you to jail. Itachi glared at them before Sasuke yelled, Ni-san. Stop it already, please. Itachi turned around to where Sasuke was, and with a short breath, cooled himself down. He then prostrated himself onto the ground and told them, it is not I who killed Shursui, but for my words and actions, I deeply apologize. Fugaku let out his breath, satisfied with that, as he told Itachi, let's go inside. Itachi. Fugaku then went towards the door, but first grabbed Sasuke by her ear. Uchiha men do not need to plead. Understood? He said in her ear. She nodded and he let her go, his actions unnoticed by the 3 Uchiha who had already begun to walk away. However, as Fugaku walked away, Itachi glared at his back with his Sharingan ablaze, and more so, the 3 Tomo pattern changed into a shuriken-like shape. What is that Sharingan? The team looked on, quite unnerved at the situation, also curious about what Sasuke mentioned in her thoughts. It was the Kyuubi that answered their question. Those eyes are the Mangekyo Sharingan. You can think of it as the stage about the 3rd Tomo of their blasted eyes. Ugh, just looking at them makes me want to blow something up. What's so special about them? Naruto asked her. The redhead fox woman sighed. Essentially, they give the user new abilities, one in each eye as well as one that uses both eyes in tandem. These can be things such as the Amaterasu I told you about before, as well as strengthening the base abilities of the Sharingan, which includes their stupid fucking genjutsu of theirs. Sakura asked her, are you okay? The Kyuubi reined in her hatred, and spoke, well, it's because of them casting their bullshit level genjutsu that's I've been controlled not just once, but twice. Heck, it's because of what they made me do that your annoying little village locked me up. Naruto then told her, it's okay, Kyuubi. We understand. Haku then came up with a dark joke to try and cheer her up. Well, at least now there's only like 3 Uchiha left? The others looked at her a bit baffled, but the Kyuubi laughed as she spoke, true enough. Guess that's a silver lining for me. The other 2 decided to let her have that. They would rather have a happy beast of mass destruction than a pissed-off one on their hands. It was then the Kyuubi dropped the bombshell on them. In any case though, the Mangekyo does come with a price. Constant use can lead to blindness, and worse, in order to activate it, you must suffer mental agony such as if one killed their best friend. This caused the 3 Genin's eyes to become wide open. Wait, Then did Itachi really kill that Shursui guy? Naruto asked. Haku and Sakura also wanted to know. However, the Kyuubi simply shook her head and spoke about that. Even if it's only a memory, I can sense negative emotions, including the one that comes with lying. What is strange though is that Itachi was telling the truth when he told them he didn't kill Shursui. Haku replied, quite a conundrum. We should get going though. The longer Orochimaru has to toy with Sasuke, the worse things might get. The group nodded, and afterwards followed the Kyuubi to the door that Fugaku, Sasuke, and Itachi went into moments before. The next place they arrived at was the Konoha streets at night. Before any of them could say anything, they spotted a Sasuke running towards the Uchiha district. Oh man! Toussaint is going to kill me. Maybe he'll be nicer about it if I say I practiced shuriken jutsu, which I did, but I need to hurry. The four found it a bit funny, but couldn't really laugh as they felt something off about the atmosphere, something bad. The group then ran behind Sasuke. As they ran, both the Kyuubi and Naruto sensed a presence up above, and saw the silhouette of a ninja above. Is that Itachi? Naruto yelled. The Kyuubi replied, likely so. Sasuke noticed Itachi's presence, only for him to not be there the moment later. Sakura's eyes opened wide as she realized what night this was. This is the night. However, she was cut off as Naruto spoke. I can hear screams and the smell of lots of blood. The group then dashed faster, just as Sasuke in front of them did the same. As they arrived at the Uchiha district, they saw the bodies of many of the Uchiha clansmen all over the place. All taken out with single, fatal strikes. And the amount of blood would have made Sakura and Naruto throw up their lunches. The two were glad that right now they were mental projections of themselves rather than their physical bodies. They would have lost their lunch otherwise. They found themselves in the middle of the Uchiha massacre. Sasuke meanwhile ran down the streets, yelling the names of the clansmen she knew, only for there to be no answer, save for some of their bodies being in the open for her to know they were dead. In her fear for her family, she then ran into the house. As they ran, the Kyuubi noticed something strange. She swore she could hear fighting in another location, and in the house she could hear Itachi speak something she never thought the supposed clan killer would say. I'm sorry. Seems there is more hidden about the massacre than I suspected, she thought. What the rest of the team didn't know was that Minato asked the fox to complete a second objective, to see if she could find anything that could tell them why the massacre happened. She was brought out of her musings as they entered the house. For a moment, they all felt a strange sensation. The Kyuubi then told them, we're here. I can smell that snake stench now. The group nodded and ran behind Sasuke, all of which were ready for a fight. Sasuke came across an open door, along with Team 7, who were still invisible as they had not changed anything yet, only to see Itachi cut his parents down, right in front of Sasuke. Itachi stood tall, staring at his younger sibling. However, despite their shock, Naruto and the Kyuubi also noticed something that was hard to tell at first glance. There was a dried tear or two on the clan slayer's face. While it puzzled the genin, the Kyuubi on the other hand started to get a hypothesis to form in her head. However, they didn't have the time to worry about that right now. Itachi, what did you do? Itachi stared at him as he coolly spoke, I killed them. Sasuke screamed at him, why? Why did you do it, Nisan? To test my ability. All of the group thought that was bullshit. Something was fishy. It was then a voice spoke. That's right, Sasuke-kun. He simply killed your family, your friends, all just to test his power. You want revenge, don't you? You want power, don't you? The group looked around before the Kyuubi spotted it and yelled there. They noticed a small white snake on Sasuke's shoulder. It spoke into Sasuke's ear, attempting to speak whispers of power and glory to her. Haku nodded and sent a saban towards it, causing it to look back and realize in fear that someone else had invaded the young Uchiha's mind at the worst time. It quickly batted away the saban but was not prepared for Naruto to come in and tackle Sasuke to the ground. The reason being was that he was also paying attention to the ongoing memory, and noticed Itachi's eyes change as well as talk about showing her something. He thought back to what the Kyuubi told him previously, about the Sharingan controlling her before. For once in his life he immediately understood what that meant. Genjutsu. As he guessed Itachi was about to toss her in one, he quickly tackled Sasuke to the ground, making her line of sight no longer with Itachi's but now Naruto's was. And he was now visible to them. The memory Itachi was surprised at this, but it was already too late as the Genjutsu activated. As Naruto was hit with the Genjutsu, the Kyuubi quickly grabbed the white snake with her hand and glared at it point blank. You dare to mess with life the way you do things, Orochimaru, now burn. The snake was then set alight. It screamed in Orochimaru's voice as it was destroyed. Despite their mission being a success, there was another problem. Naruto! The girls yelled as he fell to the floor. Inside the Tsukuyomi, Naruto found himself on the Uchiha district street, and the ground was black while a red moon hung up in the air. What the hell? He said out loud. That is something I would like to say for myself, Naruto-kun. Naruto turned around to see Itachi standing behind him. However, he was not showing a single sign of hostility. So Naruto felt no reason to fight. But he did want answers. Itachi, were you going to do to Sasuke? However, Itachi frowned for a moment and said, you mean what did I do? Naruto was a bit confused at what he just said before he elaborated. Naruto-kun. I know this is merely Sasuke's memories. I merely set a portion of my chakra in here as a backup just in case. Though thank you for taking care of that snake, I hadn't sensed it until the last moment. Naruto scratched the back of his head, but then yelled, "Hey! You didn't answer my question." Itachi simply smiled as he said, "Right, of course, you were always a get-to-the-point kind of child. Essentially, I was going to have her relive the massacre from my eyes with a few things left out." "Why?" Itachi sighed. "The truth is, I want her to kill me." "What?" Naruto screamed in surprise. Itachi nodded and continued, "I wanted her to hate me, and to activate her Sharingan, so that someday, she could bring honor back to the clan by defeating the one that slayed her clan." However, Naruto saw there was more to this and asked him, "Why did you do it?" "I know there's something else going on here." "You were crying." Itachi's eyes widened in surprise. He then smiled and he spoke, "I see. I suppose that form of yours must have improved your senses. And relax, I won't tell anyone." Naruto looked at him at first in shock that he could see the fox ears and tail, but breathed in relief that he wouldn't sell him out. Itachi then told him, "As for the truth though, I will not tell you." "Oh, come on, relax, Naruto-kun. Let me finish," he said with a wave of his hand, and with a short he spoke again. "However, if you are insistent on learning what truly happened from me that night, then when you and Sasuke are strong enough, find me, and prove you can withstand the darkness that comes with the truth." Naruto nodded and with a cheeky smile said, "All right then, I'll kick your ass someday and be the light in dark for Sasuke then." "That's a promise, Databeo." Itachi smiled, as he felt sure that this boy meant what he said. He then looked around and noticed the genjutsu start to crack. "It seems our time is up. We will meet again before long. And beware of the masked Uchiha." Naruto nodded, considering he might be talking about the same Uchiha who released the Kyuubi previously. Just as the genjutsu was about to end, Itachi also added, "Also, if you make my little sister cry, expect no mercy from me." Naruto with wide eyes replied, "Wait, wh." And then the genjutsu ended. Sasuke's mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes to see both his team bending over him, checking if he was okay. He then looked around to notice that Itachi was gone, and that Sasuke was also leaning over him. "Hey, are you okay?" Memory Sasuke asked him. Naruto simply grinned as he said, "Oh, I'll be fine, I'm tougher than I look." Sasuke started to cry, tears in her eyes as she asked him, "You didn't have to do that for me, you big dummy. I don't even know you and Nisan could have killed you." Naruto simply smiled back as he said, "Well, I didn't want you to suffer more than you already have that, and because I'm Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage. No way am I gonna let a little girl get hurt on my watch." Sasuke then smiled as the tears ran down her face. "Is that so? Then don't let yourself get hurt again, idiot, and thank you." It was then the entire room turned to white, and Memory Sasuke had vanished as well. The girls then made their remarks. "While yes, you're an idiot, you're a good kind of idiot, just don't pull that again, Naruto," Sakura said before she pulled him up. The Kyuubi simply grinned. She was quite pleased with what Naruto did, even if it was a member of their filthy clan he protected. But he could sympathize with the girl, being forced to act as the opposite gender due to the views of society, though for different reasons. But she also couldn't help but sense a bit of familiarity in the girl. But the Kyuubi decided not to worry about it for now. She could figure it out later. Haku added to Sakura's remark, "What you did was a very, very noble act, Naruto-kun. Though like Sakura said, a bit reckless, but if you didn't do so, you wouldn't be our Naruto-kun." "Ihihei," Naruto replied as he scratched the back of his head. The Kyuubi then spoke, "Well, in any case, let's." However, the scenery, much to their surprise, changed one last time. They found themselves on a hill, standing over a lake that had a small pier next to the hill. Sasuke was sitting on the pier, looking into the water below. She wasn't wearing her usual outfit, but instead looking more girlish, and had her hair in a ponytail in the back. While I hated Dad at times, at least making me act and dress like a boy makes it easier to disguise as a girl. The girls thought she looked quite cute. Naruto, however, was thinking out loud something else. "Wait a second, I recognize this." The group looked at him, minus the Kyuubi since she knew, in a bit of confusion. But their question was answered as they saw a small boy with blonde and spiky hair walking down the road with his hands behind his head. "Wait, is that Naruto?" Sakura asked in surprise. The chibi Naruto then looked down towards the girl at the pier, who sat there all alone. "My family are all dead except for my brother who killed them." "Why, Itachi, why did you do it? What should I?" At that point the blonde came down the hill, walked onto the pier, and sat down next to her and with a smile, asked, "Are you okay?" Sasuke looked at the cheery blonde and said, "Go away, I want to be alone." However, the cheery blonde didn't give up, but instead asked, "Did something bad happen?" Sasuke simply stayed quiet. She didn't want to be bothered like this. "You're not alone, you know." The girl turned his head towards the blonde boy who continued, "Everyone has someone they can share, laugh, and cry with. Don't you have anyone like that?" Sakura and Haku were shocked. They didn't know that even when he was young that Naruto had the sort of sagely wisdom that sometimes comes out when they're all together. Sakura started to think Naruto was a lot wiser than he sometimes acted, despite him being an idiot. Sasuke looked into his eyes for a second before she said, "I don't have anyone like that anymore." However, the blonde smiled as he said, "What about me? I can be your friend. Sensei Irika says I'm a good listener when I want to be." Sasuke looked at the blonde. His clear blue eyes, his breezy blonde hair, and the infectious smile he had. She almost felt as if though the darkness that had been holding her down for the past week faded away. All just from the smile on his face, the words he had spoken, and the feelings behind them. This boy, he's so bright like a light in the dark. The group smiled before Naruto's eyes went wide open as his memory of this event resurfaced for him. Sure, Sasuke said with a smile on her face. Even chibi Naruto couldn't help but blush a little. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. What's your name? Sasuke pondered it for a moment, before she let out a thought. Mom always told me she hated that Dad made me use a boy's name, but she did tell me one time what she wanted to name me. She then nodded, and just as she spoke her name, the present Naruto also said it as well. Asuka. Sakura and Haku looked at him questioningly before he told the rest of the group what he remembered. I remember this. I found her at the pier one day looking sad and wanted to cheer her up. We ended up spending a week together, hanging out here once a day at this place, before one day she said that she had to go somewhere, and probably wouldn't be back. She told me that if I cared for her, I should find someone else to like, someone that's smart, pretty, and all that. Oh my Kami, I forgot this. This wonderful moment in time I had in my life. The group found this adorable, before Sakura realized what this meant. Oh my Kami, that's why you were always asking me out, weren't you? And maybe all those punches to the head I did to you made you forget why. As the scene faded away, with Haku and Kyuubi laughing at Naruto and Sakura's expense, one blushing and the other had facepalmed herself in embarrassment, they felt the tug as they were being pulled out of Sasuke's, or rather Asuka's, mindscape. The last thing they saw was the cheery blonde and raven-haired girl laughing and giggling as they spoke to each other. Naruto made promise that he wouldn't forget that day again, and also made sure to have this image burned into his mind, as well as what she thought at that time about him. Her light in the dark, Elsewhere in the forest of death, Orochimaru, now in his disguise, was waiting for Kabuto by the tower. He was already annoyed that the boy hadn't been up to date with his information, but also from the second-degree burns on his arms. He was still mad at himself that out of fear, he forgot that he could have easily dodged that monster of a jutsu with a quick, sealless substitution. However, the damage was done. He even used his jutsu that worked like a snake shedding its skin, and while the minor burns were healed, the damage his arms took were still quite agonizing. He wasn't even sure now if he wanted to experiment on the Kyuubi brat or outright murder him for what he did. He was brought out of his thoughts as Kabuto walked out of the forest and into the hallway. My lord, you requested my presence? Kabuto asked. Yes, you. Southeast Orochimaru began to speak. However, he was interrupted by an agonizing amount of pain he had never felt before. He knelt down to the ground and clenched his arms as a silent scream came to his mouth. Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto said as he knelt down to try and help his master. After a moment, the pain faded away, and Orochimaru picked himself up. However, as the boy saw his eyes, Kabuto couldn't help but shiver in fear. He had never seen his master so angry before. It was as if the Orochimaru could kill someone with his anger alone. Kabuto. Yes, Lord Orochimaru? The boy responded. After you resign from the exam, return to Sound immediately, and add someone to the bingo book, and I want them dead. Is that clear? Kabuto nodded and asked who? Naruto Uzumaki. Elsewhere in the Land of Fire, two men wearing black cloaks and straw hats were sitting at a dango shop that was next to the road. Under the hats, one would realize that these two were infamous S-class criminals. Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hashigaki. Kisame was telling Itachi a story about the one time he was about against a large amount of hunter nin, only to slaughter them all. And he enjoyed himself as he did so. Sigh, he's quite the battle junkie sometimes, but at least he's always straight with me. Much better than dealing with Madara or worse, Danzo. They always seem to be up to something. Just as a smile came to his face, his eyes widened for a moment as a flash of memories came to him from something he had set up long ago. Hey, you okay, Itachi? Kisame asked, noticing the change in expression. Itachi shook his head and told him I'm fine, Kisame, but thank you for asking. Kisame simply shrugged and got back into his story. At the part he was literally using one of his opponents as an improvised second weapon. Itachi smiled, not really to his friend's story, but to the memory of the chakra clone he had set up as a just-in-case measure for his sister. I'll see you soon, Minato and Naruto. Forest of Death, Konohagakure, Land of Fire. The three genin opened their eyes and looked to see the Naruto clone that was possessed by Naruto with a smile on his face as the curse mark on Asuka's shoulder disappeared. He then looked at them with Naruto's bright blue eyes. Well, since I was able to remove the seal, you guys managed to succeed your mission. Good job, he said as he then gave each of them a bit of a head pat. Naruto, Sakura, and Haku felt it a bit weird since in looks, it was Naruto's clone doing that, but since they knew it was Minato, they were happy with the compliment. So, what else happened in there? Other than the Kyuubi finally being clear about her gender? Minato spoke with a grin. Oh, shut up, blonde bastard. You got your own secrets that you haven't told them either. The Kyuubi spoke in her feminine voice. She felt there was no point in faking her voice since the only two people who could hear her at the moment both knew her gender, and didn't act like she was a beast to either be hated or contained like the rest of the humans. So she tolerated them for the moment, but she also wanted to see just what they would do in the world, but she wouldn't admit that any time soon. Naruto chuckled a little at the jab and Kyuubi's response, and then told his father, well, where do we start? Haku picked up on the cue first. Well, we learned Fugaku was the one who made Sasuke dress and act like a male. Minato sighed. Really? Sigh, I knew he was a bit sexist, but he wasn't that bad. Perhaps he got worse after I died. Sakura went next and spoke. Apparently Naruto met Sasuke, Asuka, once before they were young, and Naruto here didn't recognize her in the academy, and I may have accidentally hit him enough times he forgot until recently. Naruto retorted, hey. She looked and acted a lot different in comparison. How could I not assume Sasuke was a different person? Minato let out a sweat drop as he said, well, things like that happen in Sakura. Just try to not hit him too hard next time then. Fine, still hitting him if he does something stupid. Sakura replied. Well, anything else? Minato asked. Naruto finally got his turn, and let's just say, everyone had a WTF face. Well, when I took Tsukuyomi for the memory form of Asuka, I actually ended up meeting a sort of clone Itachi had put in her mind as a safety measure. He admitted that he wanted her to become strong enough to kill him and avenge the clan, but as to why he did it, he wouldn't tell me, but instead said if we want the truth, we'll have to beat it out of him. Heck, I made him a promise on that database. Wait, what? The group turned to see an awake Asuka, who had returned to consciousness in the middle of Naruto retorting to Sakura. The first thing she noticed was her shirt was gone, thus she knew, much to her annoyance, her gender was revealed. But then Naruto said something that she just had to confirm. She grabbed Naruto as she asked him in rapid fire, are you telling the truth, Naruto? Did Nisan really plan to make me some sort of avenger out of his guilt or something? And why is now you remember the actual me? Just what happened while I was out? Tell me. Naruto was being shaken as Asuka asked her questions, a slight bit of panic and annoyance mixed in her face, leading to the rest of the group simply have a bit of a dry laugh. This was definitely not the Sasuke they knew before. Stop shaking me, Asuka-chan, and I'll talk, Naruto yelled. Asuka stopped shaking him and let out a sigh. She really was hoping that it would be a time she could explain it on her own terms, but now they had somehow not only learned her secret, but even more than she thought. Naruto then answered her by telling them just what happened after she had been bitten by Orochimaru right up to where they saw her moment with the young Naruto. By the end, her face was as red as a tomato. They literally knew just about every important aspect of her life at this point. Heck, they even got front seats to her most cherished memory, the moment she fell hard for the blonde. It was also the root to her one regret. That in order to keep her gender secret so that the council wouldn't try to make her a baby-making machine, she had to quit going out as a girl. And she had an image to keep up as Sasuke Uchiha. And even more so, she tried to be very unfriendly with Naruto, since she knew at a young age he was quite a loudmouth and would have caught on to her if she acted more friendly. Only good thing was the civilian council didn't have as much leverage on her since she was now an official ninja. She decided to take that silver lining for now. Well, I suppose that's fine then also, Naruto-kun? She said while the blonde was still in her grip, eyes staring right into his. Yes, Asuka-chan? He replied before she then initiated a kiss with him. As a result, Sakura watched with mouth wide open in shock. Haku raised her eyebrows since she hadn't expected that. Minato chuckled as he expected that to happen sooner or later, and the Kyuubi laughed as she literally guessed that would happen when they came back out. She then pulled away from them, leaving Naruto to let out WL. You have no idea how long I wanted to do that, Asuka said with a smile on her face. The two seemed to have a moment before Minato let out a cough, which reminded them of their audience. Asuka quickly let go of the boy and looked away with a red face. Naruto was doing the same in the other direction. Minato then said with a bit of a grin, well, while I wouldn't mind grandchildren, you're still young, so I say take it slow. Now in any case, I'll make my leave for the moment. See ya. He then dispelled the clone himself, breaking his connection to the outside and his conscious return to the seal within. Dad! Naruto yelled in embarrassment. Haku let out a short giggle, Sakura still in a slight bit of shock, and Asuka pouted. Naruto then looked back towards Asuka and asked her, so can we call you Asuka-chan, or Sasuke? Since you all know Asuka in private, Sasuke in public. I wanted to make a better reputation before I let people know about the real me. That way those pricks in the council wouldn't get stupid ideas, stupid CRA. Asuka replied. The two girls nodded as they knew about that law, Haku especially. She was still quite grateful that Lord Third managed to keep that from happening to her. Meanwhile Naruto asked a dumb question. And that would be? Asuka sighed and then whispered into his ears just what the CRA was. As a result, it became his turn to turn red as a tomato, much to the girl's amusement. Naruto then shook his head and said, well, don't worry. If I have to, I'll initiate the biggest prank war Konoha has ever seen in order to keep them off. Elsewhere in the village, the entire civilian council felt a shiver down their spines, as if though the demon fox itself was standing behind them with a huge grin on its mouth. They all looked behind them and calmed down when nothing was there for now. Back at the forest, Asuka let out a giggle as she responded, I know you would. You're a Hokage of his word, right? Naruto also gave her a big grin. Haku then walked over to them as she said, speaking of keeping their word. Haku then quickly grabbed the boy's head and kissed him as well, much to the other's surprise save for Kyuubi, who was laughing her ass off, and Minato wondering how his son would handle this. What the hell, Haku? Asuka said in surprise. Haku pulled away and replied, I may not have known him as long, but I love this boy just as much as you do. He saved my life and spent time with me, with both of us enjoying each other's company. so don't think you can hog him. Asuka then in confusion said, wait, what do you mean? Haku then went over to the Uchiha girl's ear and whispered, the Ciare goes two ways, right? And Naruto is part of a near-extinct clan, right? Think about it. Asuka then smiled and said, fair enough, I set the ground rules though, deal? Haku and Asuka then shook hands. Meanwhile Naruto was still a bit out of it after he had been kissed by not one, but two women. As for Sakura, she was still trying to put together just what the heck happened. First Asuka turned out to be a girl that liked Naruto and kissed him for what was actually the second time. Then Haku also ended up liking him and made out with the boy and made some sort of bargain with Asuka. What the heck, I know he's gotten stronger and has his moments, but what the heck? Me falling for him or something? Or even another girl showing her interest? She thought.